And I'd like to welcome Dr. Kareem Malik. He's the director of the Iowa Technology Institute, and he will be providing the welcome and the overview remarks, and then he'll be presenting some more information on Santos and Sophia later on.
Thank you, Travis. Welcome. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second annual Iowa Virtual Human Summit. Welcome to the University of Iowa, and welcome to the Iowa Technology Institute. My name is Kareem Malik. I serve as the director of the Iowa Tech Institute. As you all know, the purpose of the summit is to bring together experts and innovators in this field, human modeling and simulation. We're delighted to host this conference here at Iowa and really pleased with the lineup of amazing speakers this year that have graciously accepted to share their work with us. The summit, as has been advertised, will focus on virtual humans as it relates specifically to human performance, which is a current focus of major concern across the military, the police, and a lot of industry. I begin by extending a huge thank you and appreciation to Senator Ernst of Iowa. Senator Joni Ernst was here physically yesterday visiting with us at the Virtual Soldier Research at the Iowa Technology Institute, but she had to leave for another meeting and was very gracious to record a welcoming message. As you all know, she's a combat veteran herself. She's incredibly supportive of all work that enhances soldier performance and readiness. I want to acknowledge and extend my gratitude to the Army delegation that is here today. Right here in the conference room is Colonel Kevin Biegelman, the Holistic Health and Fitness Director for the U.S. Army, Dr. Chip East, Senior Scientist, Physiologist at Fort Eustis, all at TRADOC. I extend my appreciation also to the University of Iowa Executive Vice President and Provost, Dr. Kevin Kriegel, who will be welcoming everybody on behalf of the University of Iowa, for taking the time to welcome everyone. He is a physiologist himself and has been very heavily involved with our research for the past decade. As you know, it takes really a lot of effort and time preparation to coordinate a meeting like this. So there's a lot of people involved. And I just want to thank, first and foremost, Travis Klopfenstein, who's been just amazing. He makes it look so easy. It is not easy to reach out to everybody and coordinate one person at a time, a speaker and topic and so on. Thank you, Travis. Brian Morelli for all these communication issues, keeping us all organized and lined up. Website editing, Melanie Laberman, just amazing work. Nick Tomlovic for audio, video, and IT expertise. Eric Schnedler for running the slides in the background. And then the rest of all the folks at the Iowa Office of Strategic Communications. Thank you all so much. I hope everyone enjoys the conference and look forward to interacting with everyone. Thank you. Travis, back to you.
Thank you, Kareem. And I'd like to introduce our Vice President and Provost, Kevin Kriegel. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Kareem. I want to welcome everyone. Good morning. This is the second annual Iowa Virtual Human Summit. The University of Iowa, and specifically the Iowa Technology Institute, is an internationally recognized leader in the area of modeling and simulation, especially related to virtual humans as digital twins, which you'll learn about today. We are quite proud of our two most famous members of ITI. That's Santos and Sophia, and I think Kareem's a close third, but I suspect you'll meet both Sophia and Santos at some point later today. Kareem and his team have done an amazing job in advancing the technology in this space. And as Kareem mentioned, I've been collaborating with him for over a decade on the human physiology side of this, and I think as we look at the trajectory of this product, we're just scratching the surface. It's been remarkable what we've got in terms of capabilities, and we're really looking forward to continuing to collaborate with many of you on the call going forward. I know that there's been some established opportunities that we're already collaborating on, and I think there's some potential going forward as well. I am now going to transition. As Kareem mentioned, we have the benefit at the University of Iowa of having a strong relationship with Joni Ernst, who's our junior senator from the state of Iowa, but also importantly, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. She has been extremely supportive of our efforts around human modeling and simulation. As Kareem mentioned, Senator Ernst was here yesterday, spent over an hour specifically with ITI, and was availed the opportunity to engage with a lot of our team on various aspects of our endeavors here. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the tech folks because Senator Ernst was able to submit a greeting for us today.
Hello, everyone. This is Senator Joni Ernst. I have the privilege of representing our great state in the United States Senate. I want to begin by thanking you again for inviting me to participate in the University of Iowa's first annual Iowa Virtual Human Summit last year that focused on better female personal protective equipment. As a follow-up to that conversation, I'm proud to share that just last month, I successfully secured key measures in the Senate's annual defense bill that will further help equip female troops with properly fitted body armor. My efforts to get our female service members the right body armor and PPE would not be possible unless we had the technology developed through the hard work of folks at the University of Iowa Technology Institute to back it up. This year's theme, which explores how virtual humans and digital twins can improve human performance, is equally important for supporting our national defense. One of my top priorities as a member of the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities is directing resources and attention to emerging technologies, including those that help strengthen the readiness of America's fighting force. When it comes to our state's role in this issue, I'm very proud of the incredible innovations being spearheaded by the Iowa Technology Institute. Your research is playing a key role in shaping the Army Combat Fitness Test's general methodology and approach to injury prevention, which, as you know, is the foundational test for assessing the physical preparedness of our service members for the battlefield. The innovations you're piloting also support the military's goals to develop better, more realistic training, rigorous and stressful scenarios that both replicate combat and identify, prevent, and address potential injuries at an earlier stage. As an Iowan and a combat veteran, I am incredibly proud of the work you are doing to support the readiness of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Guardians. My daughter Libby just entered her 4th year at West Point, and she will soon join the over 210,000 women who serve on active duty in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps. I want the best for her and for all of our service women and men. We need to provide them with every technological advantage we can. So I applaud your creativity, your innovation, which has huge implications for our military's readiness and supports the men and women who serve our nation, both now and well into the future. I will continue fighting to ensure that Americans know the critical need for this research to support America's national defense and protect our heroes. Thank you, and God bless you.
Now I'd like to introduce a very close friend of the University of Iowa, Major General Stuart Wallace, and he will have some remarks and then introduce our first speaker. So General Wallace, over to you.
Thank you, Travis. It's a pleasure to be here again this year and participate in the conference. As the military advisor for the Technology Institute for the last 3 years, I've been able to work with some great people as we have advanced the technology in human modeling and simulation. In that regard, looking forward in the future, we have established an advisory committee consisting of 9 individuals from academia, the military, as well as the civilian world. And I'm pleased to be the chairman of that advisory council. And we will work with the folks here at the Institute to advance more opportunities beyond what we are currently working. In addition, we have established a pilot program where we are focusing more of our resources on the Department of Defense, and we'll continue to work that for the next 2 or 3 years with a special effort. Enough from me now. I'd like to turn it over to Colonel Kevin Bigelman and Dr. Chip East from the Center for Initial Military Training, who we've been working with for the last couple of years. So, Colonel Bigelman, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think your comments and those comments from Senator Ernst today are a perfect segue as we transition into our discussions. But before we begin, I think we'd like to thank you, General Wallace, and Dr. Malek, and all the great colleagues here at the Iowa Technology Institute for organizing today's symposium. I'm Kevin Bigelman, and along with my colleague and friend, Dr. Whitfield East, will provide you with a brief update on the Army's Holistic Health and Fitness System and the Army Combat Fitness Test. And in the Army, we use a lot of acronyms, so we'll take Holistic Health and Fitness and we'll shorten it down to H2F, and the Army Combat Fitness Test is the ACFT. So if you can go to the second slide, please. So we always start with the question, why do we need H2F in the Army? We know that soldiers are our most critical weapon system, yet we're significantly challenged by a variety of factors that impact individual soldier personal readiness. And so if you look at the numbers, our recruiting pool of those qualified for military service is getting smaller year to year, influenced by a variety of factors, one of which is obesity. We're challenged by overweight and obesity in the active, guard, and reserve components as well. We also know that musculoskeletal injuries impact over 55% of soldiers every year, and we spend a heck of a lot of money, nearly $577 million on patient care for those MSKIs. We've got soldiers with sleep disorders requiring sleep prescription aids, and we know that just one night of sleep loss is associated with an increase of risk of physical injury by 54%, and a decrease in the hormone levels that are involved in muscle recovery and repair by 90%. And so for just a small reduction in these behaviors translates into huge savings for the Army, but more importantly, it improves the health of our force. And so the H2F system, as we've designed it, really is to focus on those 5 main goals. We're trying to increase individual soldier personal readiness. We want to optimize physical, non-physical performance. We want to reduce and drive down musculoskeletal injury rates. We recognize that soldiering is a contact sport and soldiers will be injured. When they get injured, we want to return them rapidly to the battlefield. And then ultimate goal is to improve the readiness of our force. Next slide, please. So really the backbone of H2F system is the use of interdisciplinary teams consisting of physical therapists, occupational therapists, registered dietitians, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers, and cognitive performance specialists surrounding the soldiers in close proximity to where they live and work. But the use of these interdisciplinary teams is not a new concept. If you look at all major sports, if you look at professional leagues, if you look at collegiate leagues or collegiate programs, if you look at our national teams, they all surround their athletes with SMEs, subject matter experts, that are designed to optimize and improve the performance of their individual athletes, or in our case, soldiers. So as we created the H2F system, the Army partnered with some of these organizations to better understand how to most effectively care for our athletes or our soldiers. Next, please. About a year ago, the Army changed its physical training doctrine. Field Manual, or FM 7-22, was formerly known as Army Physical Readiness Training. And in the past, we only focused on the physical aspect of training with a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's not working. So now we've rewritten our manual. FM 722 is now Holistic Health and Fitness, and we take a more holistic approach with dedicated chapters on important non-physical domains like sleep readiness and spiritual and mental and nutritional readiness. And so there's also 2 associated Army techniques publications with this FM. The first includes all Army testing, so the Occupational Physical Assessment Test, the Army Combat Fitness Test, the Combat Water Survival Test, and the second ATP describes over 600 plus drills and exercises associated with the new H2F system. And then that document on the right is our strategic operating concept. And all these documents are open source and can easily be downloaded. If you'd like to get a copy, we can certainly make that happen for you. Next slide, please. When we think of H2F, we describe it as the physical domain and then 4 non-physical domains. And the physical domain is easy for most to understand. It's the strength, power, coordination, agility, balance, anaerobic capacity that soldiers need to have success in combat on the battlefield. But the other non-physical domains are a little bit more challenging, I think, for some folks to understand, particularly the mental readiness piece. It's less well understood, but it's certainly impacted by a variety of factors, including a person's character, their behavior, their resilience, their cognitive skill, their social acuity. We get into the spiritual readiness domain, not necessarily talking about religion, but really it's the beliefs, principles, and values that get a soldier through times of stress, hardship, or tragedy. Nutritional readiness, we want to have soldiers make the right choices. They're able to recognize, select, and then consume the right beverages and food that will meet the demands of both physical and non-physical environments that we deploy to. And then in terms of sleep readiness, I think it's the most critical requirement or domain that we talk about in H2F. Obviously, sleep is required for brain health and function, but it also impacts everything we do in our life. So our physical performance, our non-physical performance, how we think, how we feel, how we respond in our relationships to others. Sleep is absolutely critical, and I believe it's something that we haven't paid much attention to in the Army, but that's changed with this new doctrine. Next, please. This is just a wire diagram of what these H2F performance teams look like. It's a mix of military officers and NCOs, Department of the Army civilians, and contractors. And these SMEs are working in an interdisciplinary fashion to support the health and fitness of our soldiers. They come with deployable training or deployable medical equipment sets. When we go down range, the providers are able to take the right equipment that they need to care for soldiers. There's also garrison home station equipment. And we'll talk about the Soldier Performance Readiness Center here in just a minute. But it's these interdisciplinary teams that will improve the health and fitness of our soldiers moving into the future. Next, please. This is just my last slide. Along with the experts, the subject matter experts that are required for the H2F system, we also believe a facility structure called the Soldier Performance Readiness Center will be necessary for each of these H2F resource brigades. It's about 40,000 square feet of facility entirely dedicated to both the physical and non-physical demands that a soldier will go through daily, staffed by the H2F performance teams that we previously talked about. And then units will rotate into the SPARC throughout the day, 1 or 2 times per week, to get the right education, training, coaching that is necessary for success. So that's H2F 101 very quickly. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. East, for the Army Combat Fitness Test.
Thanks, Colonel Begelman. If we'll go to the next slide, please. And you can advance one more, please. And one more. Thank you. So approximately 11 years ago, believe it or not, we had a directive from Lieutenant General Hertling, who was the commander of the Center for Initial Military Training, to change the Army's PT test. It was a result of 10 years of war, and if you remember back to that period from 2008 to 2010, there were some significant stressors on the United States Army relative to multiple deployments and combat overseas. And the general consensus of Army senior leaders was that the 3-event APFT was not sufficient to, A, ensure soldiers were capable of executing common soldier tasks, but also to drive training. We, to a certain degree, have a group or a number of soldiers who are focused on standards, and we were telling soldiers that if you could do some push-ups and sit-ups and run 2 miles, you were good to go relative to functioning in a high kinetic environment. So in 2013, Army senior leaders put forth a HQDA XORD 04113 called the Baseline Soldier Physical Readiness Requirement Study. And we've spent the last 8 years, more or less, developing the Army Combat Fitness Test. And I want to give you just a couple of minutes of background on that to kind of orient you to where we are today. It was really a classic concurrent validation study, very simplistic in design, come up with a criterion measure, come up with predictor measures, go out and collect a whole lot of field-placed data, and then basically execute some modeling and regression analysis to come up with an assessment. Before I go to the next slide, I just want to emphasize that predictive validity was not the single focus of the Army Combat Fitness Test development. It was also important that the test drive comprehensive training across all domains of fitness, but also to help us drive down injuries and associated attrition. So next slide, please. After we distilled the common soldier task, we broke down the constituent parts of those tasks and identified 5 domains of performance that were associated with those common soldier tasks. It's not going to be surprising to you that it was muscular strength, muscular endurance, anaerobic or explosive power, aerobic endurance, and high intensity speed and agility or mobility. So these were the 5 components of the tasks, and we worked to align the exercises that would ultimately be used in the test to those 5 constructs, if you will. Next slide, please. So, but I thought it was important for you to at least understand what the criterion measure was. And this was probably the most difficult part of the study, because anytime we looked at common soldier tasks, the metrics on there were not always as specific as we wanted them to be. And so we spent over a year coming up with what we called the Warrior Task and Battle Drill Simulation Test. And I just wanted to show you a few photos of the components. So the first component was to move to contact, to simulate kind of a mission set. And then the second was build a hasty fighting position. Now, in most cases, you would move to contact and take direct or indirect fire and build a hasty fighting position. But unfortunately, from a science standpoint, the hasty fighting position was such a rate limiter in soldier performance that we had to move it to the front, because once soldiers started this simulation test, they had to move through every one of the events. So we actually moved hasty fighting position up. The third was move over, under, and around obstacles in an uneven terrain. And you can see a variety of walls and platforms and low movements and windows. Obviously very unsophisticated relative to the equipment, but very effective in terms of performance. Next slide, please. The fourth then was employ progressive levels of force, which gets back to that force generation construct. Tire flips, sled pushes. We had, in particular, I thought the trash can rotation was really interesting. We went to the combative school and spent a week down there, and they helped us develop these exercises. And the last was casualty extraction and evacuation. So that is a summary of what every soldier who participated in the study executed before they did the common field exercises. Next, please. So we basically put virtually, it became a Chinese menu of all of the options for exercises. We had deadlift and dips and sit-ups and trunk rotations, and almost every exercise. We had 23 different exercises. So I thought it was important for you to see the progression. We actually did multiple regressions against the Warrior Task and Battle Drill for the 8 PFT scores out of Riley and Benning. And what we found across the spectrum of samples, it was about a 40% predictor of a soldier's ability to execute the Warrior Task and Battle Drill simulation test. We actually created a test based on the exercises we used at Fort Riley to create the 2010 failed attempt at an Army PRT test. It was about 56% predictive. when we ran the Riley sample, it was about 73% predictive. And your first question might be, well, it should have been more predictive. But you have to understand, when we were at Riley testing, individual participants were taking events on different days. So I may do push-ups on Monday and sled push on Wednesday. So that was where we saw the drop off in the R squareds. And so when we went to Fort Benning, we actually ran the entire 8-item test that you see down below. At the end of that period of time, senior leaders were too much equipment, too much time, too many events. And we were instructed to come up with a combination of sprint, drag, carry that involved the sled push, sled drag, and the 300-meter shuttle run, which really we think worked out pretty well in terms of reducing equipment or reducing time to execute tasks. So basically, we're at about 80% in terms of the R-squared values for prediction, which of course is well above the kind of industry standard of about 70%. Next slide, please. So I just thought I would, finish with this slide. There's a lot of discussion about men and women. There's a lot of discussion about physiological differences. Clearly, there are physiological differences that we need to account for. We believe that from an Army perspective that we can account for those through policy. So we've come up with the Army Combat Fitness Test 3.0, which we believe accounts for those physiological differences. But I wanted to list a slide here. I ran some residuals off the 6 events and then did some regression slopes, some lines there for, I think one of the things that's important to notice is that those lines are parallel, which means, as women perform better and better on the Army Combat Fitness Test, which they are starting to do, their warrior task and battle drill simulation times are going to continue to go down too. And what we'll see is, in this natural regression towards the mean, we'll see those two lines come closer and closer together as individuals continue to train for the test, which we believe, and there's already some both empirical and anecdotal evidence, that we're going to reduce injuries and reduce associated attrition. Next, please. That would be all for me. Thank you very much. And I appreciate University of Iowa Technology Institute in hosting this and having us here today, and for the incredible work they've done with the Center for Initial Military Training over the last 2 years. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you. One quick immediate question came up with and I know we have a video coming up and we have Kareem coming up, but the difference of designing a holistic health and fitness program, a fitness test event, using modeling and simulation now versus 30, 40 years ago, when you really didn't have the technology to model the human body as well. And so it's kind of a question of how much more are we learning now compared to then by having virtual human models and having modeling and simulation that we can compare it against.
So I think of it, there's 2 aspects to it. Anyone who's done field research understands the vagaries of field research. You get out at 5 o'clock in the morning and you're missing something, or the lights don't come on, or soldiers don't show up. It's problematic. We consented many more subjects than we actually assessed in the study, which were still large numbers of subjects. But where I'm headed with this is what we can do now, or what you can do, what University of Iowa can do virtually, is they can teach Santos and Sophia to perform these activities virtually, and then we can iterate that as much as we want. We can change body size, height, weight, load, and then we can also change. The one that's most appealing to me is the ruck or the approach march, so I can do it over improved terrain, unimproved terrain. I can set the slope of the terrain. I can set the obstacles in the terrain, and I can run those iterations virtually in a matter of days, weeks, and months that would take years and years, I think, for the Army to do and assess accurately. So I think by virtue of the fact that you have both the biomechanics and physics model behind it, as well as the metabolics. It's quite remarkable what they're able to do.
And Travis, I think adding state of hydration, nutrition, sleep quality, quantity, latency, all those indicators, certainly we'd rather learn virtually rather than, put soldiers through multiple rounds of testing. So I think the sky's the limit.
Okay, that's a good segue to the next question was, what's the future, like the next 2, 3, 4 years of implementation look like, and current plan, and then are there some potential gaps or areas that you're looking for technology or others to help with? So kind of what the future looks like.
So I think the future is this: over the next couple of years, really we spent a lot of time getting the right people on board, hired, and down into the brigades. And that process is ongoing as we speak. By the end of October, or the beginning of October, we should have 28 H2F performance teams established on 5 installations across the Army. So if you go to Fort Bragg, Fort Bliss, Fort Drum, Fort Polk, or Joint Base Lewis McChord up in Washington, you'll see these teams in action right now. And they're already changing the culture of health and fitness. We can share videos and so have some really great photos of what's currently happening down at the units. Soldiers actually deadlifting and going through nutritional training and courses to better understand how they eat impacts how they perform, and more emphasis on sleep. But these things are changing the culture. Over the next year, we're gonna maintain those 28 brigades, and then we're going to grow at a rate of 10 brigades per year of H2F resource teams out to fiscal year 2030. So at the end of this, we'll have 110 brigades across the Army sourced with H2F performance teams. In terms of, so that's the first piece, getting personnel there. Equipment takes time to procure and get down to the unit, so that's the next big phase of this. And then I mentioned the Soldier Performance Readiness Center, these actual facilities, these structures. We've got funding available beginning in fiscal year 23. So a couple of years from now, you'll start to see, we're going to try to renovate existing facilities, but where we can't renovate, we're going to build new SPARC, Soldier Performance Readiness Centers. In terms of technology and kind of where we think about that, I think there's a lot of talk about how we track our return on investment for H2F, and I think an athlete management system, our soldier management system that kind of tracks along the 5 domains that we mentioned, the physical and the 4 non-physical, is where the Army will get to. I think wearables certainly has a place in the Army in the long term, and wearables that can populate an athlete management systems, something that's easy, convenient, doesn't take a lot of time for soldiers to upload or download their information. I think kind of that's the way of the future down the road a few years.
So I think, and I probably have to come back and do the math on this, but I think on any given day we have more soldiers geographically dispersed than centralized. We tend to think of even the active component, which is only 40-some%, 40, even if it's 50%. We have a large proportion of the active component that's not in a garrison environment. They're off somewhere doing other things. And so when you roll back in the Guard and Reserve, we have a lot of individuals who are geographically dispersed. So I think that's, for me, initially kind of this prime opportunity for the wearable, the model that allows these individuals, to be synced into the H2F process from a distance, but also to relate information to demonstrate that they're tracking in terms of the H2F system. So I think that's really critical relative to what we have available here.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I know there will be more questions that will be coming in. To go into more detail on the relationship between the Iowa Technology Institute and our 2 most famous individuals, Santos and Sophia, and their relationship with the ACFT, we're going to play a short video. This video also serves as kind of a break transition from what was kind of the first hour of a live event in the room in person, and then the remaining presentations will be conducted virtually. So this video will play, and I always think about what if we had Santos back when they said, hey, do the sit-up this way, and what if we could have modeled that and figured out, oh, if you do that for 10 years, your lower back's going to suffer. So those are the insights that we see coming up. So if you can, cue up the video. That'll give everybody a short break, and then when we come back, I'll turn it over to Dr. Kareem Malik.
Since 1980, the U.S. Army has used a physical fitness test, or PFT, to train and test their soldiers.
The PFT was an annual requirement for every soldier in the Army, from private all the way through general officer. It consisted of 3 events: push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run.
In 2008, the Army started working on revamping the PFT into a more comprehensive set of tests known as the Army Combat Fitness Test, or ACFT.
The reason we were looking at a new test is based on the 15 years of combat we'd faced in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other locations around the world. We realized that we needed to up the physical fitness level of our force and develop a modern test that was more reflective of the needs of today's battlefield.
They identified 6 activities that an individual needs to be able to do to be able to go to war and survive.
So the ACFT is a unique endeavor in that the Army is really trying to use science to develop a fitness test.
They already had this new idea and new set of tests in mind, and they did a big research project on it. But then the question was it sound?
The Army contacted the University of Iowa about validating their test theories in 2019.
As an independent consultant, as a public state university, the Iowa Technology Institute is now right at the front answering questions with great science. And that's what we're here for. We're not taking one position or another. We do the work in the lab, we study, we analyze, and then we provide answers.
Kareem Malik is the director of the Iowa Technology Institute and founded their Virtual Soldier Research Program almost 2 decades ago, conducting basic and applied research in the field of human modeling. Their primary aim has been creating interactive, intelligent, and predictive human models that operate in virtual, physics-based environments. The product of this research is called Santos. Santos, along with its female counterpart, Sophia, is the only physics-based human simulator of its kind.
I think Iowa is the perfect institution for providing the third-party validation of the Army Combat Fitness Test because of the work that we have done with human simulation.
So the advantage we have is we have digital human models. We can take a few different subjects, evaluate how they perform these tasks, and then we can model the strength requirements needed to do those tasks. If you're able to lift a certain level of weight, that might match how much is needed in order to lift a soldier out of a difficult situation.
We can increase the load to ask, how does it work on your back, or how does it affect your shoulder? You can do things here in the lab environment, but can you do the same things when you are in high humidity areas? How does that affect your capability? So we can do all those kinds of tests, and that's the motivation behind Santos.
It's very important to have many entities come together to create this because it takes biology, engineering, computer science, artificial intelligence.
At the University of Iowa, with our collaborative team, we have a unique combination of individuals who are able to bring different perspectives to this analysis.
It's really a perfect blend of people to bring their domain expertise together and come up with really a singular solution.
The question they're going to be able to answer for us is, what are the performance requirements for the ACFT tasks relative to the execution of high-demand soldier tasks?
Their own experiments were 3-phase studies, and they did at different locations with different Army groups. It was just amazing design of experiments that they performed, and we were happy to be able to then use all of their experimental work with them to kind of bring them to a conclusion.
After a peer review from Iowa's team of scientists, engineers, and military advisors, ITI recruited ROTC volunteers to perform the exercises, captured a baseline, and finally used Santos and Sophia to reproduce, verify, and validate the data.
is the ACFT good enough, well designed to prepare better soldiers? We've been able to answer that very quickly and rigorously by saying yes. So what we want over the next few years is to continue to work with the U.S. Army on correlating the ACFT to the Common Soldier Task.
Having understanding of all of the potential recruits and their fitness standards is incredibly important, not just for their work efforts itself, but really for the long-term medical outcomes.
Now what we're looking at is the ACFT able to reduce injuries? The Army sustains a lot of biomechanical injuries, injuries that take the soldier out, that cost a lot of money to the government, to the taxpayer. And so if the ACFT is so well designed that it can prepare the soldier better performance, then those injuries would be reduced.
We've been working with the University of Iowa now for about a year and a half. Their unique capabilities are crucial to our ability to answer certain questions.
Human simulation is becoming more and more important throughout the world, and Iowa's Santos program here is one of the very best in the country.
I've never known Iowa to be involved in the military. I think it's really great that the University of Iowa is involved in this ACFT process and helping the Army strive to make us all better in the future.
Coming in 12 years ago, all I knew was the push-ups, sit-ups, and 2-mile run. But this is a great change of culture for the military.
It's pretty exciting to be working on this project on something that's so novel and new that we have the potential to help contribute how those tests are used and how they're understood, and to be informing them on their value that may impact lives in the end.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So that was a morning really dedicated to understanding the relationship between virtual humans as potential digital twins and improving human performance. And one of the great programs that has the opportunity to impact the Army for the next generation of soldiers coming through. I now want to introduce Dr. Kareem Malik, Director of the Iowa Technology Institute, just to provide more background on the digital twins as they apply not only to this specific work with the ACFT, but more broadly. So Kareem, over to you.
Thank you, Travis. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, good to go.
Great. I'm going to spend this next 20 minutes just explaining the story, the history of how we came up with Santos, what it is, what's inside it, and doing that with a focus on both the digital twin world, but human performance in specific. Most importantly, I'm going to focus on just being an integrated virtual human. It's not just the biomechanics. It's not just the looks of what Santos or Sophia or any avatar look like, but being integrated with physiology, biomechanics, all of it together. 2 is the physics of the human and the environment. And then 3, assessing the human performance metrics and how we do this. Let me start by saying it's been 15 years, 16 years now. So Santos is about 16 years old, Sophia about 14. And, you know, both models made of about 215 degrees of freedom. We call the elbow 1 degree of freedom, the hand 25, and so total together 215. Santos is made up of skeleton, anatomy, muscles. He looks almost real. Obviously, you know, we're not focused on the looks of it. We would love to partner with others to do that. He has an entire muscular system that is able to sustain torques and stresses. In about 04, 05, we started the program with just the idea of how do you predict motion? How do you tell Santos, I want to move somewhere, but respect the environment, respect your ranges of motion. Here's the target, try to reach that. And in that process, we were able to do assessments of just posture, reach, vision, maybe some static forces, very simple things. What we were able to do then is this program was with Harley-Davidson up in Wisconsin, and they wanted a Santos model that they can vary a little bit to see how, for example, he would reach, what the posture looks like, why, you know, riding for long term would induce stress at L4, L5 in the back, given a specific posture, and so on. Same things, even at, then 04, 05, we were able to do very simple things. As you can see, lower robotic motions at that time, but we were able to do a little bit more of vision, a cone and acuity of the vision, some collision detection, reach issues. Can you maintain this? Can you reach that? Slowly, and it took us really about 8 years to do something that we call now predictive dynamics. And so, as you know, given the human body, it's like just a robot of many, many degrees of freedom. The equations of motion, Newton's laws, apply. And so you have to solve that in order to arrive at a solution. So how do you do this? Most people try to integrate these equations, and that's incredibly difficult. It's actually impossible, just incredibly computationally intensive. And so we took a different route. We looked at using optimization to do this, where we drive the motion and the behavior of the model using optimization and cost functions. So we say, for example, hey, Santos, now you're going to ride a ride and try to reduce your energy subject to all the motion around you, the physical laws of motion, the target that you want to reach to, the constraints, and try to do that motion. So in this case, we subjected him to a ride. And so the dynamics of the motion take over, the dynamics of the environment and the dynamics of the person start interacting. And what you get is a behavior of some sort that he will respond to. At the time, in terms of assessment, we were able to calculate now at this point, in 2014 or so, with this method called predictive dynamics, we're able to calculate torque, stresses, energy. Now we have energy. You can calculate hydration levels. You can calculate fatigue levels. And so it started, honestly, in about 2014. It took us about 9 years to come up with this formulation. But finally, aha moment, we have something that we're able to subject the model, whether it's Santos or Sophia, to do things that are real. You subject them to things and they come back and say, yes, I can do this. No, I cannot do this because of the physics, because of the load. Now, a lot of people say, well, the human body, if you put an avatar in an environment, in a game environment, you say, hey, carry this table. This table's 300 pounds. Can you lift it up? An avatar does not understand the strength limits of a human body. And so what we've done is bring cohorts of people. So did the military, the Marines in specific, bought similar machines as we have. They're called Biodex machines. And they would measure strength at every major joint, not all joints in the body, but major joints in the body. And that would constitute the limit of what we can do. So if you say, hey, Santos, try to carry this huge box, and given your body type, your weight, your dimensions, and so on, anthropometry, to try to carry that box, Santos would go and try to do that. And he would generate a torque at his elbow, for example, that is substantial. And you have to compare it to something that we know of. And so that's where the limits of human strength come in. We've tabulated now for about 10 years, lots of data that is really the limit of what a person can do. Same thing for Sophia as well, and variations thereof. So with that, we're able to do now truly physical activities where you can change the body or you can change the environment. Here's a program that we've done for the medical command. It's actually Center for the Intrepid down in San Antonio. They receive a lot of veterans that have lost limbs, and they wanted us to create a way to exchange part of the limb, the lower prosthetic device. And so, as you know, the training, once somebody comes in, amputee gets a prosthetic device, is not an easy fit. It takes time to learn how to walk, the gait itself. So they've asked us to create this tool. And all I'm trying to demonstrate here is that because he's physics-based, because he's physiology-based, you are able to do this. You're able to remove part of his body and say, I'm going to change it now with a rigid body that has limited joints or a different, and he will respond. We don't teach him how to walk. he is able to walk and demonstrate how he would do that if that prosthetic was this long or that long or this, design or another. Carrying on now, we wanted to induce behavior, and so people do things different ways. If you're tired today, you will do a motion, you will perform a task, you will conduct your mission in a very different way than yesterday, where you were not tired, you were not stressed. And so using this optimization formulation that we've been working on for exactly 16 years now, I'm going to summarize it like this. The cost functions, the human performance functions that drive the motion for Santos and Sophia is made up of multiple things. In this case, I'm going to demonstrate with two just simple postures. One, I'm going to say, hey, Santos, minimize distance, try touch the sphere, and he just did that without looking at it. Now I want to induce different behavior. I'm going to say, do the same motion, but minimize distance and maximize your vision. Remember, vision is some sort of a cost function that says, I know where things are. There's a cone. It's a vision acuity. I know where my target is with respect to the cone. Maximize that. And so now he drives the motion, inducing a different behavior. And so that's the main concept. Now we're able to say, today, you're a 21-year-old female, this anthropometry, this body type, and you're exhausted. And so try to accomplish this in a different strategy. So we change the cost functions than what was yesterday when you were not fatigued, you were not, and so on. As they do this, we're able to assess things. Stresses, everything in gray I've talked about, but now we're also able to assess behavior and strategy. Is it easy? Not really. Is it computationally efficient? Not quite there. Is it real time? Some of it is real time. Some of it is not. So I keep telling people, yes, we've been working on it for 15, 16 years, but we're just scratching the surface. There's so much to be done, the cognitive aspect. And so what we're looking for, particularly in this summit, is just to collaborate with people that are experts in one area or another. I think we would benefit all together. We would benefit the military if we come together and exchange ideas and add capabilities to provide solutions. As we went along over the past many years, we've worked a lot with the military and other entities to bring data in. In some cases, I'm just going to cover a few. For example, Usarium up in Natick, Massachusetts, has done incredible modeling work on metabolics, on heat transfer, thermodynamics, and so we've partnered with and got data and models to implement inside the Santos model, Santos and Sophia. Same thing with the Marines. Same thing with SPA-WAR and so on. We just keep adding data, but the one key issue to remember here, it's an integrated human. It's not just about having one model represents thermodynamics, because thermodynamics, is connected to hydration, is connected to energy, metabolics, and how you move, the biomechanics. All of it is integrated and has to be modeled in that way. In terms of as a digital twin, trying to assess things, and so now we're able to do heart rate, fatigue, energy, heat transfer, hydration. We do that through creating the motion and then calculating what we need from it in terms of performance. So here's two examples. A Santos, same Santos, so same height, same weight, same everything. One is trying to do a task, same task exactly, and they conduct these tasks. One is much more loaded than the other, and then as a result of this, we're able to calculate things like that. Is it 100% accurate? No, it is not. However, it's close. It gives the commander, the strength and conditioning coach, the designer, the procurement agent, the purchasing agent that is trying to assess a new piece of equipment, a great idea, not 100%, but a great idea. I would say in the 80% range now of what are the results. Can you change things and do it again? Can you change the body type and do it again? Yes. And so talking about body types in the Santos Sofia environment, you are able to go in and change just about everything. But because of usability, in some cases, we limit that and we provide. So, you can certainly go in the Santos Pro version and say, hey, I want to change the leg length for this particular avatar, this digital twin, and make it longer. And so now you expect that all the performance that Sofia Santos will do will be completely different. However, working with the Marines, for example, they've asked us to, instead of having this ability to change everything, let's define the boundary of the population of the Marines. They've done a lot of work within the Army called the Answer Data. So we worked with them to identify the 7 boundary of male, 7 boundary of the female, the tallest, strongest person, the tallest, not so strong. And these are the boundary. And we are able to pass those through very quickly in a loop to see what they will be able to do, how they do it, and assess things. So another program that we've worked on, and I just want to demonstrate soldier variability. So this is the MACLEAP system. It's the Marines 32, I believe, warfighting scenarios. Throw a grenade, go through, climb over a window, take prone, climb steep stairs, and so on. One of them is vertical jump. And so I've asked Sofia as a 60 kilogram to do this on this side just to see how the response is. And Sofia as a 51 kilogram person doing that as well. And as you can see, yes, we record motion from motion capture. We bring people in, we record their motions, and then Santos Sofia learn from that motion, but then you ask them to do things and they will do it according to what they can, what strength they can to do it according to their body type, their weight criteria, and so on. Same on the ground, same, just different tasks that they do and how Santos Sofia can do the same thing. And while they're doing this, we're able to assess, in some cases, speed was a big issue. Can you accomplish the task within a certain time? Other questions are, can you accomplish the task? If somebody buys a new piece of equipment and it has all sorts of limitations on the range of motion, a new body armor, incredibly heavy armor, a new weapon system that needs to be assessed, but the weapon system is incredibly cumbersome, heavy, restraining for a very small female, the system, Sofia, will be able to talk back and say, I should qualify that, tell us back. They don't talk yet. They qualify back things and tell us, yes, I'm able to do this. That's my metrics. That's why I was not able to do that. Some of the programs that we're currently working on, we're just incredible honor and pleasure to be working with the Army Futures Command, specifically the Data Analysis Center, Ron Bowers, who I believe is on the call, as well as Greg Dietrich. It's just been a great partnership working on their system called the Overmatch. We provide a very small aspect of it to assess the soldier as new equipment come in. And so we're building with them this environment. And the idea is to bring systems in, a new weapon, for example, and say, hey, Santos Sofia, change your body type, change your environment, change the task, and tell us what your mobility level is or index. What's your survivability? They have incredible power in the ORCA model that is able to assess injury, casualty assessment in general from explosions, from weapons, and so on. So we're trying to, Ron and Greg with their program, trying to tie a bunch of technologies together in order to serve the Army better. Finally, and I think you've heard already quite a bit about the work we're doing with the Army Combat Fitness Test. It's been a great experience for us learning about what the ACFT is about. Just incredibly well designed 6 events that really at the end of the day improve the readiness of the soldier. And so we've been at it for about 2 years now. And what we do is we bring soldiers in, ROTC in this cases. So, we're on campus, we have access and great support by our ROTC folks. We bring the cadets in, they do the ACFT, they do common soldier tasks. We monitor them in a very scientific manner. We have motion capture systems. We bring them in, they do all these tasks, and then what we do is actually compare in a very scientific, rigorous manner a lot of the kinetic parameters, motion, torques, ground reaction forces, and now power as well, power calculations. What, for example, the power throw, how much power is needed to accomplish something versus also the common soldier tasks that are done on that side. So we compare the two in a rigorous scientific manner, and to see the correlation between how can the ACFT, how does the ACFT improve and contribute to the common soldier tasks, therefore contributing to readiness in general. So this just shows the process of what we do. We bring people in. There's a lot of analysis involved, and then at the end of the day, comparison between the curves that produced by the ACFT versus the common soldier task. One last program I'd like to just tell you that we've been involved. This is with the Marines, and it has to do with injury prediction. We call it malum. Malum means injury in Latin. So malum terminus means reducing or eliminating injury. For 3 years, we've gathered incredible amount of data, massive amount of data from 3 sports across 3 seasons, and we trained a system called the Santos Malum system with all this data to predict injury. That was the idea. So, from player profile to body parameters, daily measures, previous injuries if somebody had, and here's the big. So once you train all of this, you have an AI system, an artificial intelligence system that is able to point at injury and say, on a daily basis, student Jones is about to get injured. We wanted to know if that green, amber, red target is getting close to saying, well, that person is about to have a musculoskeletal injury. And again, remember, this is massive data that's been trained into the system. Santos does the kinematics, biomechanics calculations in order to fill a lot of the missing parts. And here's the biggest finding that we found. Injury, especially musculoskeletal, take an ACL injury, was not based just because you had a previous one, but it was actually 3 specific reasons. So continuously, among all the injuries that we've noticed, the system pointed us to saying this person was injured because they had a significant stress, a significant lack of sleep. In fact, sleep came out as number one, all the time. And load. Load means how much effort they've done across a temporal. So time was an aspect that we've tracked as well. How much sleep they got 2 days before, how much sleep they got 3 days before. And of course, this is involving a lot of wearables, a lot of questionnaires, a lot of that's a whole different discussion. But at the end of the day, what we were just amazed by is the notion that the reason for injury was not a previous injury. It's not because you made a little mistake here or a little that. It was much more a lack of stress, significant stress, a lack of sleep, and significant load over the past couple of days. Finally, what we're trying to do in the future, we're incredibly excited about porting a lot of Santos and Sophia code for the past many years that we've been developing into a professional, well-supported, as you all know, Epic Unreal Engine is just the Rolls Royce of the industry. And we're just incredibly happy to now start work on porting all of this into the Unreal, so it becomes much more widely available, easy to use, well supported. Very, very exciting for us. Finally, also as well, we're working with the university responsible folks to allow us to provide the Santos open source code it is available today to the military, but we're working on also making it available to everyone who wants to collaborate, work with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kareem. For the sake of time, we have, I'll read back one question, and it's from one of our international observers or participants from the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, India. A question really getting at stability in Santos. What is the criteria for assessing and maintaining stability in Santos? So if you just have a minute or so to answer, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very short answer. It's called ZMP. I believe it's called Zero Moment Point. It's a method that calculates all the inertias of the body and then projects that. It's a well-known method. We didn't invent it. We use it. It's a well-known in robotics where a humanoid that's what the method they use. It's called ZMP, Zero Moment Point. And so you take all the torques of the body, you project that on the ground, and then there's a point that has to be within a polygon that's also projected on the ground. If the point is outside the polygon of those projections, then you're losing stability, and that's how we keep Santos stable.
Thank you, and I'm sure there'll be more conversations and discussions. And just for everyone to note, we have added a place on the submit your question, a place for you to enter your email in case we can't answer questions live. We can get back to you after the conference. And again, thank you to the international partners that are supporting, and we will be hosting that International Digital Human Modeling Conference in Iowa City at the University of Iowa next year at the same time, where we'll go much more in depth into the current state of digital human modeling. Again, thank you, Dr. Malik. Well, that was the first hour plus, and we really covered a lot of ground, had a lot of great material. This next hour coming up is going to be fascinating. It's the hour really dedicated to industry and our industry partners, those that are working to improve human performance through lots of different means. And it's interesting how the digital twin or the virtual human will begin working with these industry partners. But I have the privilege of introducing Kristen Holmes with WHOOP and Robert Moeller with WHOOP. Kristen is a vice president there, and Robert is directing military teams. They are doing some fascinating work with WHOOP and some fascinating research, and it's just an honor to have them on board. And I got to plug University of Iowa alum, probably one of the most famous athletic alums. Kristen, thank you for taking time out to join us. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Travis. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Great. I'm going to come up here with my presentation. And as I'm pulling that up, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that is, thank you to Iowa, and also thank you to Kristen for putting all of this fantastic information together. And I'm going to share my screen here in a second, and we will jump right in. Kristen, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Excellent.
Stand by. And of course, it doesn't work when we're live. So give me a second. Here we go. Okay, perfect. And as you can see, I just want to take a quick moment to let everybody know how this came about. You can see this slide here. I hope everybody can see my screen. I was going to make a joke about Joe Rogan being in the crowd here, but given the recent events of him contracting COVID, I will not make that joke, so we do not put any bad juju on anybody in this photo. As you can see, we're going to be speaking about circadian misalignment, resilience, and also behavior in the United States Army soldiers. And just to tee this up for everybody, the United States Army came to WHOOP in 2020 and said, listen, we have a problem with so much daylight, about 18 hours of daylight. We have a very high, or one of the highest suicide rates in the United States Army. And we also have an alcohol epidemic that has been plaguing the commands for a while. Can you help? WHOOP was excited to come back and say, absolutely. And what they asked us for is to provide and pull apart a blueprint of what makes a more resilient soldier. And with that, I'll kick this over to Kristen Holmes, the principal investigator of this study. And with that, Kristen, over to you.
Thank you, Robert. I'm honored to be a part of this inaugural summit and humbled to share our research with so many folks whose work I've long admired. Many thanks to my alma mater, the University of Iowa, for hosting this event and for the opportunity to share these preliminary analysis from the study with U.S. Army Alaska. I'd also like to thank my research collaborators from the University of Queensland. We have a world-class team in place to help us with this effort, led by Professor William von Hippel and Dr. Gemma King. So next slide, please, the goal of the project. So really our goal here is to investigate the personal, physiological, psychological, situational, and environmental determinants of resilience and how they interact to produce maladaptive and adaptive behavioral and stress responses among U.S. military personnel in Alaska. Our goal here is really to attempt to build a strength and competence model with these data. I guess a playbook, if you will, to guide and enhance resilience based on empirical data. We have a lot more of analysis to do. That's so much data, but we are well on our way and excited to share with you these preliminary results. Just a footnote in terms of the 24/7 biometric capture. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a second, but I just want to add that as a scientist conducting research, WHOOP really solves many problems typically faced by researchers. Just in the study, we had the opportunity with WHOOP to do continuous monitoring. We had access to all of those data. We have the ability to do in-app custom surveys to our de-identified participants. So privacy obviously is paramount here. They don't have to leave the platform. They can do all of this in the app. So it increases compliance rates. And most importantly, as it relates to the US military, the ability to capture these data during demanding field events. I think the other footnote worth mentioning is that WHOOP, is providing reliable insights into actually what's really happening with wearers throughout their daily lives. Again, this 24/7 capture, we're able to really understand the nuance, complexity, and context of the day-to-day psychological stress of these men and women. Next slide, please. This is just kind of an overview of what I'll be discussing. I'm going to go through the study background. I'm going to share with you the physiological profiles of the U.S. soldiers stationed in Alaska based on our data, behaviors and personality traits that have an impact on sleep consistency. And sleep consistency is the behavior that has emerged in our research as being the most salient predictor of human resilience. Next slide, please. Go ahead, Rob.
And so this is just a quick overview of what the technology is. For anybody that's listening out there that is not familiar with WHOOP, it's a 24/7 biometric feedback tool. But how this is applicable to the United States Army is we're constantly tracking and measuring and teaching the individual soldier what decisions they should make more of and what decisions they should make less of. So we're really helping the individual soldier with positive behavioral changes that last not just a day or a week, but for the long term.
We had 865 soldiers. They were provided the WHOOP 3.0 strap. The study started in early February, actually in January of this year, and we finished our data collection in June 2021. The soldiers provided a very comprehensive survey during onboard, and then again repeated that survey at the conclusion of the study to gauge psychological profiles related to resilience. And this is an observational analysis. And just as a note, for this analysis, we filtered to only include those who had data recorded for 75% of the study and responded to both the onboarding and exit surveys, except for the physiological profiles, which we had the entire cohort included in that analysis. So basically that took our N down to 200. So what you're about to see in the forthcoming slides is an N of 200. Again, we just applied super stringent, strict criteria to ensure that we had the best possible data to share with you today. Next slide, please. In terms of our measures, we used, and I should maybe say to start, typically in the fields of psychology and physiology, as many of you know very well, they've always been really separate. I think the integration of biopsychological information with this level of fidelity, again, allows us to contextualize kind of this really powerful dynamic interplay. And I think it allows us to say something quite meaningful about these relationships. In terms of our objective validated measures, we did continuous heart rate sampling. It's at 52 hertz. We continue sampling of heart rate variability. And just as a note, we do RMSSD. That is the time domain tool used to assess heart rate variability. And just as a note, heart rate variability is simply the difference between each heartbeat and resting heart rate, of course, which is beats per minute, respiratory rate, energy expenditure, and sleep. So total time in physiological sleep, stages, and consistency. For our subjective measures, we put together specific psychological assays that would allow us to understand soldier resilience. And note that we haven't had a chance to look at the weekly survey responses and the associated cardiac data, specifically heart rate variability. So I'm not yet in a position to tease apart the longitudinal relationships there, which obviously are really important. But nonetheless, these early results are exciting and we're eager to share. And there'll, of course, be more to come on the cardiac side. Slide 8, please. Our study aims, were to investigate this concept of circadian misalignment and the effect on physiology, sleep parameters, and self-reported measures of resilience. Circadian misalignment, it describes a variety of circumstances, but my purpose today and for this study was to build on much of the research that has focused on the impact of misalignment of sleep to the biological night. And when we align our sleep to the biological night at a preferred time, we call this behavior sleep consistency. And this has really emerged as the canary in the coal mine. So it's very exciting. And just as a note, sleep consistency is a surrogate marker or a measure of circadian alignment. Okay, so when you align, you enable this kind of sleep consistency. There's a mountain of evidence at this point linking circadian misalignment to increased risk for physical, like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, cancer, as well as a host of psychiatric disorders, namely depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, and attention deficit. And then HRV is a proxy for stress and a measure of resilience. Again, I want to reiterate that we'll look at this cardiac data in the near future. And resilience, of course, is the capacity to functionally adapt mentally, physically, and emotionally to environmental stressors. And really our goal here, just to reiterate, is to try to operationalize this incredibly important feature called resilience of the human condition. Next slide, please. Transition slide. Thank you. And slide 10. Okay, so Mo, I think you might make a comment here, but just as a note, I only selected the variables that were similar between sexes because the proportion of sexes in the study is not the same as the age-matched control. And the red doesn't really mean anything other than just to represent sleep consistency. And we controlled for sleep duration, which I think is also really important to note. But when we look at these two, when we look at the U.S. Army Alaska soldier and we look at the general population, there actually isn't that much difference when we look at heart rate variability, resting heart rate, respiratory rate, and sleep duration. But what popped is the difference in sleep consistency. It is 24% lower in soldiers stationed in Alaska. And we know that sleep consistency is obviously highly correlated to mental health issues. So, I think we've kind of found potentially one of the things that we can focus in on with this group and aim to stabilize, and it could make a huge difference. Next, Mo, do you have anything? Robert, anything?
I do. And what I'll say to everybody else listening here is when you look at the Army Alaska soldier population, and it doesn't have to be just in Army Alaska, it can be across the United States or any global military, is that discipline is always one of the main tenets of being inside of a military organization. It's very interesting to us at WHOOP how the soldiers are not able or told when to wake up. You have to be here at this time. But the ability to have their soldiers go to bed in a consistent time creates a need for discipline. And what I'll say there is that we should absolutely be working with the different branches to understand and make sure these soldiers understand how important it is to be consistent when it comes to their sleep. Now, we understand that training evolutions and real-world operations will dictate that. However, when that's not in place, this is almost the magic pill that these soldiers can start really focusing on and increasing resilience.
Thank you, Robert. Yes, I think the other, well, we'll go, yeah, we'll keep moving here. I see we're running out of time. Okay, so this is association between changes in sleep consistency and resilience. So the individuals who improved their sleep consistency over the course of the study also improved their perception of their own resilience. So I thought this was a super interesting finding. And I think the other important thing to note is that the individuals who improved their sleep consistency, so we gave them information about the importance of sleep consistency, and the individuals that enacted this kind of suggestion, the strong suggestion, are the ones who also were really high in self-control, conscientiousness, and discipline. So I thought that was kind of an interesting note. So again, this suggests that improving sleep consistency, may have benefits on certain psychological profiles. Okay, next slide. Okay, Robert.
So what we found here was that the findings within the study are those who improve the sleep consistency, like Kristen mentioned, also reportedly, increase their resilience. And what we're finding here is that it comes down to self-control, discipline, the basic buffers of stress that can help our soldiers improve resilience, all is related to sleep. And that's what we're finding is just fascinating across the board.
Perfect. Next slide, please. Okay, so just wanted to settle in on this for a second. These results are based off of averages across the entire study. So all of these pathways, so having more self-control, positive influence on others, and less homesick, all of these paths are likely to be bidirectional. So improving one will improve the other. But that peer influence item likely goes primarily from peers to sleep rather than reverse. Still, if people see benefits of sleep consistency, that might motivate them to change the ways that they spend their time with their peers. For example, fewer late nights drinking. And I just want to note that we built more, we want to build more fine-tuned models here to account for age, gender, and sleep duration. But we feel like this is a good start. Robert, do you have anything else to add here?
What I'll say here is from a tactical perspective, we really want to look to the leadership, the chiefs, the NCOs, and the folks that have the ability to mentor and lead for the younger soldiers coming into the different branches and saying, it's no longer a badge of honor to get 4 hours or 3 hours of sleep. Let's flip the script and say, I sleep 8 hours and I get 8 hours of quality sleep, and that is going to make you a more resilient, effective soldier.
Excellent. Next slide, please. Great. So we also found that those with greater self-control also have better sleep consistency, which perhaps isn't that surprising. Robert, did you want to make a comment?
And that just comes down to the basic reps of understanding self-discipline and self-control. Can I go out and have the drinks or the Red Bulls and only sleep 4 hours? Absolutely. But going back to our findings here, is it all comes down to leadership and self-discipline and really understanding why I should care about this for my job function, which is being a soldier.
And just a quick note on slide 16. So the traits and behaviors that the survey aimed to gauge were drinking, smoking, eating junk food, and staying up late. So those are the areas that we looked at. Okay.
And as we all know, that is a big attractive, deterrent from consistency when it comes to the U.S. military.
Yeah. And lots more data there. Obviously, we're just short on time, so we're kind of having to pick and choose here. But slide 17. So on this one, those who spend time with people that positively impact them have better sleep consistency. So my guess that this effect goes both ways. So we'll see. Mo, Robert, did you want to make a point on this?
I do. And as you can see on the slides here, it's like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, in the military, that is dictated by job function and also leadership. But I don't think the outcome or recommendation here should change from leadership and the friends that you're hanging out with. When you implement something like a biofeedback tool like Whoop, we saw this in Army Alaska. The individual soldiers started talking about how much did you sleep last night? How much or what was your HRV after that ruck run? And it became a viral positive behavioral change instead of the Red Bulls and the cigarettes, which we would call, a negative behavioral change. So what my recommendations would be here would have leadership and also everybody else at the individual level really start to understand why they should care about sleep consistency, HRV, and everything else.
Yeah, and help connecting that behavior to, their purpose. I've been a coach for years in the high performance space, and just understanding, your purpose and being able to connect that back to your behaviors and just aligning your values and your behaviors. I mean, these are things that we can do proactively inside any environment, right? And certainly we can do this more potentially inside the military. But I think as we're trying to get folks to adopt these behaviors that we know are absolutely central to not only soldier lethality, but just to overall, mental wellness. These are areas that we'd be remiss not to focus on. Slide 18. In my humble opinion. Slide 18.
That's it. I switched it. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Terrific. Okay. All right, Robert, if you have any closing statements, I guess we can have a couple questions potentially.
Yeah. Before I hand it back over to Travis and everybody else listening, this last finding is really fascinating. I think from everybody who's been homesick and understands what homesick feels like. I think with our military personnel constantly traveling, whether it's for training or for deployments, when we're seeing this in a 24-hour biometric environment, homesickness is something that we can see. And the interventions that we apply to our soldiers to be less homesick, that improves the sleep consistency, like we've mentioned throughout this presentation, is going to make a happier soldier. And that is what we really are going for, because without the happiness within the soldier, they're not able to do their job function. And so that's the last point I think we'll make here before we hand it over to Travis and open it up for questions. Travis?
Perfect.
I'm awesome. I'm so glad you all were able to present those findings from the Alaska Guard study. And just in the last two presentations, we've seen the linkage between sleep deprivation and likelihood of musculoskeletal injury. So there's a cost to sleep deprivation, and it can be a cost both to the individual and the team and compromise mission effectiveness if you have individuals getting injured. And that was kind of one question that we had. Did you see or collect any data during this particular study related to injuries? Or anecdotally, what all perhaps have you seen on sleep and relationship to injuries?
We do have all those data. We have not analyzed it yet, though. But yeah, we have a lot to do, a lot of work to do. But yeah, we're really excited to dig into that because I know that will be incredibly useful insight.
Okay, and some of the next steps. So I know that there's going to be more analysis of the data coming out, but some of the next steps either related to Alaska National Guard, some of these scientific type studies, or others with DoD. Just some future actions coming out of your team.
Yeah, Travis. I mean, I'll tell you that Whoop right now is deployed inside of the Air Force, the Navy, and also the Army in different capacities, whether it's at the wing level, command level, or individual level. And what I think we're seeing from all of these thousands, tens of thousands of users adopting the platform and utilizing it is that behavioral change, positive behavioral change, is absolutely possible for the individual soldier that will last a long period of time. We're not talking about, we're going to get ready for the ACFT. I'm going to get fit and I'm going to let that, maybe slide off a little bit. This is consistent micro decisions, positive behavioral changes that we're seeing inside of the force that are long lasting. And we're starting to see 70 to 80% less drinking. We're starting to see 25% more sleep across the board when it comes to users inside of DoD. And Kristen, I don't know if you have anything to add to that based off of the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, we're doing, we're replicating these studies across other high stakes, high stress verticals. So I think it's important to note that we'll kind of have quite a robust understanding of human resilience in very similar, non-military but very similar types of environments. So we're excited to kind of merge all that together. But yeah, as Mo said, I think we have just a ton of opportunity to continue this type of research. And obviously WHOOP is very well suited to collect these data. So there's no reason why we can't, continue to build on these findings and also, go in other directions in terms of investigating, other problems that need to be solved.
Outstanding. Thank you. I actually look forward to the WHOOP podcast that'll have more detail on this, because I remember listening to the first one you did, kind of teasing the Alaska Guard study. And when we look at what do we do with all this information, obviously we want to change behavior, but we also want to find ways to present this data in an actionable way to leadership. So when we combine it with digital twins or virtual humans, and you want the squad, platoon, company commander to let's do some COA analysis. Let's take my unit of digital twins. Let's pull in all their real-time data. What's their sleep state? We're not saying, okay, they should be somewhere else. We're giving commanders, this is where they really are. If you're going to execute this movement, this is how long it's going to take.
There's just the modeling
information we've never had before. So glad that you're part of this. I do look forward to when we have more time to go into it. So with that, I'll have to thank you and move on to another piece of this puzzle. Where do you store all this data? And how do you ensure that this data is secured? How do you access it? So with that, I'll say goodbye and I'll introduce Adam Farrow and the SPEAR team and look forward to the next time we all get to meet in person.
Yeah, thanks so much, Travis. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Adam, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Travis. Michael Herndon's going to be presenting for us and going through the slide deck here. But I just want to first of all say thank you once again for putting on a great event. You guys are so organized and collaborative in your personality and your DNA, you and Kareem and Dr. Schnell. Really appreciate that. We've enjoyed working with you guys and look forward to continuing that. And listening to the speakers before us, really, it does tee up nicely your comments on where does the data go. And we're in violent agreement that this is mission critical readiness. And in saying that, it's important because the wording is important. And SPEAR, being a health and human performance data platform in the impact level 5, can do that. If this data is really that accurate and predictive in nature, then we believe that that's mission critical data and should be protected in that level of cybersecurity. Exciting news, we just were approved in the IL5 with our Azure Cloud ATO just last week. That was a major milestone for SPEAR and for this entire community, in our opinion, within the DoD, because now we can extend and scale that security model for health and human performance. Being able to push data into Genesis, already pushing data into HAMES, and that being pulled into ALTA, the electronic health record for the DoD. Being able to track data per the DoD ID number, wherever that service member is deployed, tracking deployments with data, being able to have predictive analysis is huge. And so these are some of the hurdles we've been working on for nearly a decade. And with our experience and collaborations, we really want to do 5 things really well. And that's ingest data, integrate data, secure that data, analyze it, and then, of course, distribute that data, even with secure mobile platforms, because that's just the future. And when a service member is looking at their own data, they're going to see it on their cell phone. We have to do that securely. So that's what our platform does and is doing. And we want to empower those mission partners. Next slide. So off the back of Kristen and Robert there, we're agnostic to the data feeds. And I want to make this point. I believe that a platform such as SPEAR, we also can ingest athlete management system data, because that's a component That's kind of a spoke in the wheel of this total platform as a service, not the end all. And I think athlete management systems, soldier management systems are very, very important, but we need a holistic view, clinical data, training data, education data, forensic data, those kinds of, and health data all in one spot. Then you can really kind of start cooking with gasoline, especially with the Santos modeling and Malum and those AI engines that Michael Ahern's going to be talking about and Herndon's going to talk about within the security model. But with Whoop, for instance, we're working with them on mapping to those data fields, pulling in what we consider that mission critical data and pulling that across into the NIPR, into the IL5 enclave. Then running those analytics and showcasing that against injury data, cognitive data, physiological data, and ultimately storing that in the service member's electronic health record. That's cool. And so I think that's a big win for Sphere, for best-in-class wearables and devices, as well as our partners in the DoD. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Michael Herndon, who is the Chief Transformation Architect for CloudFit, our cloud service provider. These guys have killed it with us on getting that ATO done and have extreme experience in cybersecurity, the Azure cloud, across the DoD. So, Michael?
Thank you very much, Adam. As Mr. Perot mentions, CloudFit has extensive experience in the Department of Defense federal agency space in terms of secure and managed cloud enclaves, as well as managed workloads and migrations into the cloud. This most recent victory, this milestone that we have achieved with Sphere HP, was actually accomplished in coordination with Naval Special Warfare and the Special Operations Command. In addition, we've worked with the JPO F-35 program, Southcom, Northcom, and the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. Having said all of that, to Adam's point, data integration is critical for all of these workloads that have been discussed here today. Especially when it comes to warfighter health, PHI, PII for mission warfighters. We want to always make sure that that is maintained at IL5 CUI data impact level security control standards. We do that for national security, for mission readiness, but as well as just the human interest of all of our soldiers, our warfighters there. Again, a great focus from today's summit has been the human nature of our warfighters, and to facilitate that, to ensure that their data is treated as precious as possible. The IL5 enclave environment, defined in the Cloud Computing Security Requirements Guide of the DoD OCIO office, allows us to maintain that. Essentially, the enclave in which Sphere HP runs today serves as a secure central data warehouse. It can be accessed via ABAC and RBAC. It can be accessed via web and mobile. It is an executable, scalable model to serve our nation. When we talk about mission support, mission essential information technology systems, what we want to enable with this in IL5 CISOs, as well as federal government customers across the board, whether they be civilian driven or DoD based federal agencies, what we want to make sure is that each point along the way there, we have ready, known, defensible, proven standards of integration across all of these different agencies and combatant commands. A point of failure, a possible failure mode for this type of enterprise would be to transmit this data, store it in a centralized, secure data warehouse, but then bring with it all of the technical debt or security gaps that have historically been part of the segmented data brokerage model across the DoD where you have extraneous endpoints, unqualified scenarios. Using the IL5 sponsored by the Department of Defense as a central data warehouse area, what we're able to do then is make sure that we maintain that seamless integration with programs such as HAIMS that have been mentioned here today, as well as any other type of warfighter health data source. All of it can be ingested in a format that has already been approved by the DoD. We are able to leverage that connectivity to enable authority to operate reciprocity in this space, meaning that now that we have achieved ATO, we can ingest from a multitude of data sources across the DoD, across the federal space, without having to continue to seek additional approval, additional accreditation. All of this increases speed of analysis while maintaining data integrity that is so critical for our warfighters and mission enablement. Now, we've talked a lot about the federal agencies. We've talked a lot about the combatant commands. That is not to say that this is a walled garden with no commercial ingestion points. As Adam touched on earlier in the reference with the next gen user experience, there is also both commercial and educational ingress that has been solved and secured in a virtual private way to this particular DoD defensible enclave, meaning that we are able to ingest data from commercial sources. We are able to ingest data from educational university sources or research group. All of this can be maintained through proper API management or DoD DMZ collaboration, all of which we have already defined, proven, and been accredited for. As we move forward and we talk about some of the security that is involved with the Azure stack in this particular space, when it comes to Azure Government is serving state and local gov, federal gov, U.S. gov partners, and the defense industrial base, the Department of Defense. The key takeaway from all of this is that we at IL5 are enabled to support all of these data classifications here. We're able to support, secure, and collaborate seamlessly on any of these standards for CUI, PII, PHI, CDI. We have an enclave that is FedRAMP High compliant. We have the IL5 substantiation. And with that IL5, we also have NIST 800-171 compliance, ITAR, CGIS, and we also have the structure to be fully HIPAA or DFARS compliant as well, based on the scenario of the data ingestion and use that we're modeling after. Also, this environment, again, can be extensible if for any reason there was a need to begin handling any mission readiness for warfighter health that would be of a top secret nature. We also have the availability to transition data and extend this model into the Azure top secret stack as well. And then finally, all of this, of course, is residing upon Microsoft data centers in this particular model. Each one of those data centers has layered data center security around it. Again, this goes back to support the Department of Defense's security, authentication, authorization standards. But for any of these data centers, they're all located in the continental U.S. There is a background check and a system check involved always for any type of access approval. These data centers have video coverage, perimeter fencing, and only a single defined access point as perimeter control. The building itself has continuous 24/7, 365 security staff, two-factor authentication throughout with biometrics, and a verified single person entry. That last concept meaning that one person is able to enter a space and they have put the right physical controls as well as technological controls in place so that you can't draft in behind someone. And then in terms of the server environment itself, secure destruction bins on site. We have obfuscation of identity location and of specific customer data. And of course, any group, whether it be Spear, CloudFit, there's always the employee and contractor vetting to make sure we have the right security posture to interact with any of these resources. All of this to say, we have established a proven IL5 central data brokerage. We have that accredited through the Department of Defense. It is extensible to commercial and education environments, and it has the right level of physical and technological security controls to maintain the defensibility of this across any mission scenario. Back to you, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Now to the next slide, Michael Ahern, our CTO here at Spear, is going to talk about our single pane of glass and also talk about Santos a little bit and Malum, those embedded technologies and collaborative efforts that we have with Iowa.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. The great thing that we have with Spear with the single pane of glass is now we can take all of your disparate data sources and put them in one location. You have the ability to upload, as Adam mentioned, to Hames, Alta, wherever you need to send the data, you can send it from Spear, and you only have to enter it in one place. So you don't have file cabinets for, strength and conditioning, nutrition, your device data. You don't have any of that anymore. You can literally have a single source to put all that stuff. The cool thing about that is now you can derive insights on that. If you're using Whoops, you're using Garmin, you're using any devices, you can now derive insights over aggregated data timelines of what that data means, as well as you can connect the warfighters to providers and leaders by alerting in our single pane of glass. So if you notice somebody is trending lower on sleep, you can actually send an alert out to that combatant command or that leadership and have a touch point come out to them and talk to them. Soldier mental health is hugely important, especially in both big Army and big military, as well as the Guard and Reserve. And when you're in a Guard and Reserve scenario as well, you only get to talk to some of these individuals 2 days out of the month, and being able to track that that healthcare data as well as that mental and cognitive data in one place and being able to alert on those things when you're seeing negative trends is huge, because it allows you to have direct interaction with the soldier at that point and provide interventions, whether that be a survey with targeted workouts or targeted sleep data, or whether that be just picking up the phone and making a phone call to that individual soldier. Next slide, please. And as Dr. Malik spoke, and as we've already heard, the Santos model and the Malum AI is really what powers our AI. We have this embedded into the platform to help predict and mitigate injuries. The goal of this is to start alerting on negative trends that we're seeing, and also identify what are the top three. What is your top 10% of your population doing? Are they sleeping more? Are they seeking strength and conditioning? Are they eating right? And what's the bottom 10% of the population doing? And how do we prescribe interventions, and how do we prescribe actual data to them to help them see how to get to the top 10%, or even a medium number of 50% where the rest of the soldier body is? And that is all fed through this AI. And again, it exists within the single platform and the single pane of glass. So we're taking the data from your Whoops, your Garmins, all of your devices, and as well as your provider data, and putting it in one place and applying those AI models to it, so that you have a holistic picture of the soldier over time, and you can start to identifying trends through the AI that we have. And the cool thing about it is also being able to do some AI deep learning models, as well as being able to do some predictive models if we're missing data. And the neat thing is we can also turn off data sources. So if we're taking only objective data, that's provider data, medical data, and device data, we can turn off the soldier data for the subjective surveys, because everybody knows, especially when we're talking about pilots, the last thing we want to do is say, oh, I'm hurt. The airmen do not want to say I'm hurt, because then they're grounded. So we can start turning off their results if necessary when we're feeding these AI models, to just say, hey, we're just going to take objective data, and we're going to see if that objective data actually aligns with what the subjective data from the warfighter is. that's just a little bit of what we do, but I'll let Adam kind of wrap up from there.
Thank you, Michael. Finally, I just wanted to mention this as an idea. We're starting to also really consider provider resiliency. I think that's something that's overlooked beyond the warfighter. The providers are doing their thing and are out there in the field and in the clinics. Having that level of efficacy, though, within the same platform, and looking at provider resiliency along with warfighter resiliency and optimization with this holistic view, I think is extremely important. And I just wanted to kind of throw that nugget out there. That's our next kind of focus area to embark on as well. So thank you, Travis. That's it.
Thank you, Adam and Michael, actually both Michaels. That update on the security of the data is key. And as we think about the implications, we've identified interventions. You get more accurate, more quick interventions. But then you get into the what if analysis. What if I do this? What if I do that? And that allows both the providers and the individuals to understand how to better manage. And again, back to the commander, trying to make decisions. Okay, I have a 7-day mission coming up. I can now model what if they get enough sleep, what if they don't get enough sleep? What's the increase in injury risk? And now commanders have more information in terms of the decisions they make and accepting the risk. Okay, if I'm going to put my teams in a position where I've now increased their risk to the likelihood of injury is 75%, I need to make sure I have all those injury evac resources identified and ready to go. Versus I know I don't have any resources, so now I'm going to set up a mission profile where my risk of injury is as low as possible. And then who goes on the mission? And now I can sort through my data and I can identify the most rested, strongest people for this particular mission. So yeah, having access to that real-time data for analysis, for mission prep and planning, and for intervention is going to be key. Yeah. And I appreciate your time in setting this up. I'm going to transition now to our next speaker, bringing in Seb Loze and Epic Games. And we've spent probably the last 30, 40 minutes with a tight focus on Department of Defense. And now we're going to open up our viewfinder and understand how the technology related to virtual humans and secure data extends way beyond DoD into all the worlds, so to speak, that Seb and teams touch. Seb, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Travis and Karim. I'll be sharing my screen in a second. Let me know if you see my slides.
Looks good.
Oh, good. So yeah, again, thanks a lot for having us here today. It's a pleasure to be with you again, and really an honor to present with this great lineup of presenters today. So I'll try to get the most of these 15 minutes that we have together and give you some thoughts to stimulate the conversation around the concept of innovation and illustrate how commercial technology, when it's properly open and accessible, can help the simulation field. And I'll focus mostly on virtual humans here in this short presentation. So I'm sure that we will agree that we're living through exciting period of technological changes. In the past 5 years alone, we've seen a huge advance in cloud computing, connectivity, artificial intelligence, automation, and interactive and immersive technology. So across many aspects of business and society, we're seeing exciting shifts emerge as these technologies continue to evolve, and in some cases revolutionize how we play, how we work, and how we interact with each other. So the door has been opened to more richer, more immersive experiences and content, from the game we play to the movie we watch, and from the way we shop or collaborate in the workplace to the way we learn or analyze the world in classrooms and in labs. So we're now part of this interactive age where things that were impossible in the past are suddenly possible. And so a few very short words about Epic Games, very briefly. We do two things. We do video games, as some of you know already, with games like Fortnite, and we have a core game engine that's called Unreal Engine that we develop and we distribute to different type of people, either in games and in non-games. I'm the responsible person for training and simulation at Epic Games. We call it industry manager. My goal is to try to understand what people are doing in the simulation field and how we can adapt Unreal to make it more suitable for their needs. And we're adapting in lots of different domains. One of them is virtual human simulation. Over the course of the last 3 years, remarkable companies joined the Epic Game family. 3Lateral, Cubic Motion, and Hypersense have years of experience and expertise into scanning, animating, and understanding human characters, human behaviors, and human representations. So we build up on top of that expertise, and in the context of Unreal, we end up having solutions used in large domains like AEC, film and TV, broadcast, automotive, and simulation, the one that's interesting for us here. And in the simulation field, there's nothing that looks like a video game than a simulation application when you think about it. Only the goal is entirely different. And in the past, you couldn't reconcile having something accurate and something visually appealing if you wanted them to be real-time. So you either had real-time and accurate or real-time and beautiful, but real-time, true to life visually and accurate couldn't be reconciled years ago. So Unreal Engine, as I mentioned, is a game engine. That's the core of what we deliver to the industry. And we see it as as sitting in the framework level in the applications that you develop, right? Where the low-level tech is sitting, right? Where your interoperability solutions are, where your standard databases for context are. But on top of that, you need to lay your integration effort to specialty features, implementation, and curriculum definition. So Unreal Engine is not your virtual human simulator, it is one lower brick to define them. And we have several players in the simulation space who decided to move forward and work on reconciling real-time accuracy and visual realism. So that's a bit far from our core topic. And if we go one step closer, one thing that's interesting is the fact that these companies, 3Lateral, Hypersense, and Cubic Motion, since they joined Epic Games, we worked on simplifying the process of creating digital humans. And while leveraging the precision and the accuracy of what they developed across the years of their experience, we created the MetaHuman Creators. So the MetaHuman Creators is that tool to help anybody to basically, very simply, create human representations that can be fed by any simulation solution, any human behaviors or physiological simulation systems. The image that you see is a screenshot from a real-time application, and I'll show you a bit more about that. So, what does it mean for virtual humans when we introduce the MetaHuman Creators? Well, there are three main takeaways. And by the way, the MetaHuman Creator is free, and Unreal Engine is free. And Unreal Engine source code is on GitHub, so it sits very nicely next to other modules that we discussed today in this conversation. So, what does it mean? So the first thing is very, very high quality photorealistic human characters are possible in real time, right? I'll play that video with no sound, just so you have a view of what we mean here. And can you see my screen okay? Okay, cool. So earlier this year, after years of R&D, we're able to release the first version of the MetaHuman Creator. So it's a complete framework to create, to rig, and to animate very high quality photorealistic human characters. So they're underpinned by a unique set of technologies that delivered previously this level of quality for the companies that I listed before. So what's important to know is that there are a lot of modules and elements in the MetaHumans that are really rich and helpful for the community. First is the face mixing, data-driven, nonlinear authoring. So the MetaHuman database is pre-populated with a large variety of production-ready AAA game quality characters that you can use as a starting point. So you can use them to accelerate your development and to start from somewhere. And you can modify them as much as you want until you reach something that is unique and not linked to any IP. So you don't require to have the rights to use these characters because these characters are coming out of thin air. You invented them, right? So you can use them as much as you want. So the animators don't simply, record videos. It creates a digital double, and it's a very complete and precise coding of facial expressions. And in our case, what we wanted to do is to make sure that you don't need a massive rig to integrate these characters into your application. You can just take your iPhone and take the data from the iPhone directly and leverage them from the sensors of commercially available cell phones to allow the MetaHuman to receive behaviors of photorealistic reactions. And these reactions can be parameterized and the stimulus injected by any simulation application. So the MetaHuman in a nutshell are a meat puppet, if you want, in this context of very high fidelity that can also scale to different level of details to reach any type of deployment solutions that you're looking for. So, and I'll skip that video and I'll move forward in my presentation to bring you to the second point. The second point is super important. Not only you can create these characters that are extremely high quality in terms of visual representation, but it allows everybody to become a storyteller. It allows anybody to be able to animate them and to tell a story with them. I'll show you how you animate and how you use that rig that we created here. So the MetaHumans, they're designed to let anyone become the storyteller and take advantage of these characters. So they do not require any particular technical skills, making human characters accessible for everyone, right? From game designers to filmmakers to fashion retailers and influencers. There's a large variety of users of the MetaHumans. But the ones that are the most challenged traditionally when it comes to artistic view are my fellows from the simulation group, simulation industry, right? We don't have always the best designers or the best graphic artists. And on top of that, here, with that rig that we create, that is entirely programmatic, right? You just see the front end here, the visual interface that we create. But this is all entirely programmatic, so you can define expressions and transition between expressions as much as you want to bring the right level of fidelity to the MetaHumans that you define. So the characters come already fully rigged and ready to be animated, and can be easily uploaded to Unreal Engine or to Maya. So we don't lock you. We don't want you to be locked in a world, and we want to make sure that anybody can use them as much as they want. It brings me to the third point that I wanted to bring in this short presentation today. The pipeline can be simplified, right? The creation pipeline sometimes are extremely convoluted. You use 5 or 10 tools in the process of what you're developing. In that context, in that specific context that I described here, the MetaHuman framework contains everything creators need to create, edit, and animate their objects and deliver digital humans, which don't have to be switched between environments, which allow to streamline the production process. So imagine all the tools and core simulation engine that you have developed over the years, they can easily be the stimuli for any animation of a metahuman that can suddenly becomes the presentation layer of these solutions, right? They let user get started quickly with the pre-made characters, and you can extend the behaviors and interactions of these characters within the application that you create. All right, so back to simulation. We all know the simulation application workflow, right? We have content, we have scenario execution, and we have IOs that interact either for the trainees or the analyst to interpret the data that are coming from the scenario executed, or the exercise executed, or the experience that we wanted to run. All that process can be really scary when you're dealing with solutions that are black boxes, right? So this one is not too detailed, but I'll switch to the next slide, which is highly detailed here, where you see the different phases or the different tasks that you need to run in a simulation application when you're building any type of application, basically. As you can see, you can input all the environment and models that you want using the solutions that we have called Datasmith that allows you to integrate any formats that you have. We also have the digital humans and the MetaHuman creators that allows directly for integration in UE. Now, all the scenarios that you will run are one thing, but in many cases, you want everybody to have access to the simulator. You don't want to limit the access of the simulator to people who are running only high-end, super performance gaming computers, or in some cases, gaming consoles. You want everybody to be able to have access to it, and that's what we have in this deployment pipeline here. As part of the deployment, when you develop something with UE, you can select how you will display it and which target you will be hosting your application on. It can be a cell phone, it can be a tablet, it can be a computer, or it can be a web application that's running somewhere in a cloud, in a secured cloud, where you give access to specific users that don't have to have the IT configuration that is the backend IT. So leveraging cloud computing and pixel streaming, you're able to display and to deploy these applications the way you want. All right, so now imagine, from the conversations we had today and the statement from Karim earlier about CentOS being able to leverage Unreal Engine and the MetaHumans moving forward, right? We want to make sure that by virtue of what we're developing, we allow software engineers, artists, game developers, and subject matter experts to work together as an entire community, right? By leveraging these technologies that are coming from the video games and essentially funded by the video games industry, and leverage it as part of the simulation applications that you're developing. So that's the end of my little presentation here. Open for any questions you may have at that point. So back to you, Travis.
Seb, thank you so much for that presentation. We keep looking at MetaHuman, in our conference room, and we're just amazed at the reality of it. Your presentation has all those things that our teams and DoD and industry and everyone's interested in. Free, open access to the code to design in, amazing partners that you help connect to. And, I think the one question that we were talking about is some of the next steps that you see, maybe related to the Army and what they're doing with modeling and simulation, but probably beyond the Army, just DoD in general, how you see this, your technology, helping them with their human performance challenges. Maybe it's sleep or preventing injury, but down to the individual level.
So So there's one thing very fun in what's happening to us when we release a solution like MetaHumans, and when we say that, you know, when we position Unreal as an open source and free software, is that, you know, we have our use cases in mind, but suddenly we realize that people had other projects for it, and suddenly we discovered the use cases by the conversations that we're having out there, you know, outside of Epic and what we had in mind originally. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In the simulation field, the healthcare community is struggling, as you know, because they need to scale up, and scaling up with the current model where you have typical patient players, which are actually actors that are trained to be a patient in an interview with a practitioner or a nurse, is extremely hard to scale, because you need to train more, because they don't have the same talent, because they don't have the same reactions to the same test. So there's no possibility actually of having replication in the training, right? To have a training that ends up being precise enough for the practitioner. So having a MetaHuman that would be replicating a human behavior, even in the way they physiologically react in their face, how the pupil will dilate, how the skin tone will evolve, how the sweat will potentially appear on the forehead, depending on the level of stress, etc., can help, you know, practitioners to build better interview process and their trainers to know that the sky is the limit, because they suddenly have something that can evolve very well. Now, on top of that, compared to traditional mannequins, they come in all genders, all backgrounds, ethnical origins and ages, as well as health and shape and weight and strength. So you can actually replicate a world that is true to life, right? So you don't always have super healthy 25 years old athletic white male in your interview process, right? So you can actually have all the panel of interviews that you want. So that's one thing. And from there's another world, which is in the DoD, which is very interesting. It's everybody doing human intelligence interviews, and training the officers that will be operating in that context to be ready for identifying behaviors of humans which are either sharing true information or dissimulating information. That level of finesse is brought by the ability that you can look at a character in the eyes and wonder if that character is lying or not. And you can achieve that with MetaHuman. Suddenly, when you create one, it happened to me actually the first time I was using the tool. When you create one and you start to animate it and you see it moving on your screen, you start wondering what they're thinking. And you then have to take a step back and say, okay, they're just a bunch of polygons that I just created. They're not thinking yet. but really, at looking in their eyes, you start to have that emotional connection with the character, which is extremely engaging for any training that you're building.
Right. Yeah, that movement to realism. And as you're discussing the effects that should be occurring in this human in front of you, sweat and exertion, it's created the whole next frontier as we think about it from Iowa for Santos is, yes, we're calculating the physiology, we know the stress and the strain, but now you're getting into a higher level of accuracy of how do you represent graphically that type of physiological experience or biomechanical movement.
Exactly. It's easier to read people's face than looking at a bar chart to know how they feel.
Yeah. Well, fast. Again, thank you so much for your time and being here. It's just fascinating, and we're going to continue going further into realism in modeling and simulation. And we're bringing in probably one of the leading industry experts in realism in all domains, special effects, modeling and simulation. And we're going to be turning it over now to Technifex XR and introducing Mr. Ian MacVitie. So Seb, thank you so much again. Look forward to meeting in person, and I will now turn it over to Ian.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Okay, we will press on, and Anne Marie, go ahead. Okay. I will bring you in since you're ready to go.
Those messages came across just in time. Well, I'm almost ready.
So I didn't get to do the formal introduction, but Anne Marie Tidaldi at the Seattle Fire Department. Very interesting role where you're assisting the entire Seattle Fire Department with recruit improvement and training, and the work that you've been doing researching human performance improvements is just fascinating to us. So you were able to jump in and join. And if you're ready to go, Anne Marie, you can kick it off.
Of course, I'm coughing. Sorry. I don't know why this is not doing what I want it to do. There, do you see the screen now?
Yeah, we see your PowerPoint.
Okay. Is it full screen? You see the full screen presentation mode?
Not yet. It's on the slide deck.
Sorry.
If it's easier for you, I can click through your slides for you.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
I was trying to take the ball real quick and it didn't work. So, wow, I feel like I just am going to present the pre-K version of what we're doing compared to everything else that has been presented. But the opportunities are really interesting. So just to give you a quick background of how I came into the tactical population, I started off as a physical therapist and worked with the Army Baylor PT program on an injury prediction study, and then even supported the pilot program for the performance triad. Many years fast forward, and I'm here at Seattle. So the warm welcome that I received at Seattle was basically, here's our recruit training program. We have 25 to 30% attrition rate. Just about as many people are injured. So 15 to 20% of recruits are injured. And of those, 50% of them are career ending, meaning we are separating them from the department. And so I said, okay, and if you want to go to the next slide, I had, through all of the work that I've been doing, it kind of came up with this performance model. And when I was working with recruits trying to figure out what was going on, I jokingly called it the tetralogy of the recruit, because it was like every chamber of the heart was struggling. And so you see the different chambers here, and there were deficits in all of these chambers. So we applied this performance model that, if you can hit next, it'll pop up. It's a continuum going from proactive to rehabilitative. So we're able to meet people wherever they're at, and then next, and throughout their career as well. So what we teach candidates would be different than what we would be teaching somebody who would be going through retirement. And so by applying this model, we were able to reduce that attrition rate from 25 to 30 to 5%. And we took those injury rates down to 3%. Now, what's also really eye-opening for us is that we were able to eliminate career-ending injuries. So we went from half of the injuries being career-ending to 0. And so while I think, wow, that looks phenomenal, there is so much more room for us to grow and to continue to improve what we're doing in the fire service as an industry. So what I'll share with you is a little bit about what we actually did. So next slide, please. And so one chamber at a time, we looked at fitness, and what we found is that the CPAT, which is the Candidate Physical Abilities Test, is not an appropriate introduction to what to expect during recruit training. It is a gross underestimation of the demand that is going to be put on them. And so we did this thing we called it the Tactical Fitness Appreciation Day. And basically we put people in gear, and we said, okay, now you're going to go lift ladders, and you're going to go tie hose and drag hose places, and they give them a better appreciation as to what they're doing in the gym may not fit what they're going to be doing on the drill court, and how they need to change their training accordingly. We also implemented Be Strong, which is blood flow restriction training. We just started doing that. We've gone through our first iteration of it, and the progress that we found was incredible. We're waiting to see how it improves recruit performance over the next 4 months. And then the question that remains, though, is how fit is fit enough? And so I'll come back to that next slide or next. And so we looked at hydration, and what I found is that hydration was impacting many areas. And so that was the biggest target. I said, we have to get people hydrated. So we implemented a hydration protocol, but I've got on here best steps because we don't really have evidence to say this is really what being in gear does to you when it's 60 degrees out versus when it was 116 degrees out here this summer. So it's still, we're guessing and we're doing better, but it's not data driven. And so it's really throwing a really wide net. And we're catching some, but I think there's much more room for improvement. And so next. In sleep, there is no doubt the importance of sleep. And what we did, though, is that I said, why aren't people sleeping? And so we took a different approach, and I said, let's just address why people don't sleep in recruit training. And we found what those challenges and obstacles were, and we were able to provide strategies to help people improve their sleep. And there's actually a recruit who is now a probationary firefighter who will tell you that he made it through recruit training because of the way he slept. And so we're making a difference. And it was simply by what are the challenges of that specific situation versus a gross sleep education program. Next. And Thrivology. So Thrivology is where you would see resilience come into play. And what we did is I said, let's go beyond resilience. And we talk about mental performance, so controlling our autonomic response to stressors in the moment. But it's also much more than this. And I'm going to just next. So this is just a picture. It gives you an idea of what we cover in Thrivology. And if you look at the acronym for FIRE, those are what are identified as the virtues of someone who thrives. And then thrives are representing the habits and disciplines for thriving. So next. So with that, we still have opportunities. And these are going to be, like I said, I feel like this is the pre-K version of what we can do. But one of the biggest questions is how fit is fit enough? And candidates ask me this question, and I'm like, well, it's more of a discussion than it is an answer. And so to help guide them, I actually came up with this theoretical, oh, skip this, please. I hid this one and it did not hide on your set. Go. There we go. So this theoretical capacity reserve, so TCR, and it's basically what's left in the tank by the time I get all my gear on. Now, it's not taking into consideration sleep. It's not taking into consideration how hot it is outside or how hot of a fire I'm getting ready to go into. It's just a matter of load. And so if I take that question of if the question is if I train to 2 times my body weight, is that going to be enough? And well, let's look at that and see why it's not a really good answer. And if I have a 200-pound recruit, by the time they get all their gear on them, and if I put them through this theoretical equation, I can say they have 33% left in their tank. But if I take recruit B next, and I put them through all their gear, and I put them in this equation, they're only going to have 10% left in their tank to actually perform once they get all of their gear on. And that's, of course, looking at if they both train to 2 times their body weight. So to answer, yes, that's an appropriate goal is really not an appropriate answer. Now I'm going to throw another factor in on you. So let's go to the next slide. So let's just look at height. If I'm this 200-pound recruit and I have 33% reserves and I'm 6 foot, I'm probably not going to have much of a degradation in my reserve in order to perform. But if I'm 5'7" and I'm trying to throw a 28-foot ladder, my challenges are going to be very different. And I may not have that 33% advantage that I would have had if I was 6 foot. And so if I take that same idea and apply it to recruit B, and they're 5'7", and we've had the 5 foot to 120-pound recruits, and I can tell you some of them are absolute beasts, but most of them don't make it. and they're the 5'7", they're not really going to be helping themselves at all with this 10% left, right? But if they're 6'2", now they'd be really skinny at 150 pounds and 6'2". But if they're 6'2", they might have a mechanical advantage that can make up for that lack of strength that they have relatively, the relative lack of strength. So next, the question is there a mechanical advantage or disadvantage to anthropometrics, and how can we use that to help guide people in training for recruit training and then on into the longevity of a career? Next. The next question is, how can we reduce injuries? And of course, this is a common question that we're all trying to answer in a variety of ways. And I have to say that it's astonishing the amount of anecdotal data that is depended upon in the fire service, and it's got to do a lot with a lack of understanding of data. So trying to even just mitigate that hurdle is interesting. But let's take it a little bit further. So there we go. So injuries of stepping off an apparatus, it's a common injury, but we don't know why it's happening. And there are assumptions that are made. And so every time I see a report where someone has been injured stepping off an apparatus, the mitigation or the recommendation is always 3 points of contact. So that is the absolute answer, no matter what the situation was. But that also assumes that my hands are always free, that I'm never coming off the rig with a radio in my hand or another piece of gear or whatever it might be. My hands are always free. And it also assumes that I'm facing the rig, which if you're getting off the rig at a really large fire, are you really going to be facing the rig, or are you going to be turning your head to look at the fire? You're probably going to be turning your head. So some covariates, go ahead next, would be some potential covariates. So I might be even leaving the rig with an SCBA on, so my air pack, which is 35 pounds or more. And if I'm doing that, is it secure to my body, or is it swinging, creating even different forces on my system? Is the step length and width optimal? Landing mechanics, are they optimal? Are people just throwing themselves down? Or are we actually teaching them how to land? And then adequate lighting. I don't know, maybe there's visual issues, right? But none of that is taken into consideration. And right now we have no way of even looking at that. So no wonder our efforts in reducing these injuries with 3 points of contact answer is not successful. Next. So hose management injuries. This is another one that I struggle with, because there's this assumption that we don't need to be proactive against injury mitigation, because injuries couldn't possibly happen with hose management. And our data shows us that that is not true. But that's even just one hurdle that we're trying to overcome in order to make an impact on reducing these injuries. So potential covariates or limited internal rotation. If you just even look at this picture, and it doesn't show you in action, unfortunately, but the movements that are performed in order to do this hose management require an enormous amount of hip mobility. Well, people might have good hip mobility to begin with, but by the time you put on the bunking gear, which is the PPE, that hip mobility has been reduced no matter how good it was to begin with. And so that's a factor that we have to begin to take into consideration, and it's not. So next slide. So this is my kind of, I think I just opened Pandora's box slide. Where is the fire service and virtual human performance? Is there a relationship? I think it's desperately needed. And improving performance is also increasing survival, reducing line of duty deaths. But right now, as I was preparing for this, I can't help but think of the hundreds and thousands of firefighters that are out there right now, even just serving with the wildfires and the challenges that we're having. And yet the research is the same. What we've been doing for decades is the same. And so many opportunities, and I don't know where I'm at on time. I tried to go quick, but I'd be happy to take any questions. But again, I think this is more of a opportunity than it is any information.
Yeah, thank you, Anne-Marie, for jumping in, and yeah, great information and even new information for me to see how that's coming together. One quick question came: what are some of the numbers of recruits or candidates that are coming through that you're potentially dealing with at the Seattle Fire Department, maybe on an annual basis? So it's kind of a quantity question.
So I'm going to answer it two ways. We have 2 recruit classes a year where we're trying to get in 40 recruits per class, so 80 recruits. And then that is coming from a pool of about 2,000. So, and I work with the top 300 to 350 at a time.
Okay, so 300, 350 at a time, trying to make their way through twice a year.
Right.
Okay, and that's just in your district.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, and the work that's happening. I guess the other side of the question is other fire departments, other agencies, other groups that you're working with or that are interested in your work and your research.
I'm sorry, I don't think I caught the question.
Yeah, just are there others that you're interacting with that are interested in the work that you're doing and the research that you're finding and are starting to change their programs based on the research that you're doing?
So yes, and it's interesting because what I'm doing is really, and it's an entirely different direction than the WFI, the Wellness Fitness Initiative that came out of the International Association for Firefighters. And so what it's really doing right now is it's creating a lot of conversation, which I think is necessary. But they are 2 other departments that I'm working with. One of them is Tacoma and the other one is Bellevue. And they're looking at what I'm doing and they're like, how are you accomplishing this? And they're trying to figure out how to model it. But that's also an interesting piece, is that not every department is created the same. And so the demands of Seattle Fire are going to be different than the demands of a small volunteer department.
Right. Yeah, it's just fascinating because I think on this evolution of holistic health and fitness, different ways of providing fitness, if I look at DoD, you had maybe some of the early adopters and it was very much a fragmented, you would have Navy Special Warfare and maybe even teams within them doing different workouts, and it was all very disaggregated and everyone was doing their best. And now you see the organization, whether it's Army, Navy, saying, hey, we need to scale and we need to have solutions that allow for scaling. And I see you're at that same point with the IAF and the other fire departments of it's very distributed and how can we take advantage of scale. So you're like the one out leading, taking all the arrows, but doing great work.
I have to say that's a culture shift that we're even trying to continue to facilitate within our department, because everything is so siloed and trying to bring things together. So for example, peer support, who does a lot of the mental health, and getting them to talk the same language that I'm talking is super important, but it's breaking down the silos even within our own department still. So
yeah, that's great work. And that's the team that's kind of assembled that we're working is we're identifying similar challenges. How do we change behavior in all these different industries, DoD, fire rescue, police, because of the effects that it has on lifetime fitness and lifetime mental health. So really glad that you were able to participate and jump in. And I will say thank you. With that, look forward to getting together in person soon. And I will transition back over to Ian now. So again, thank you, Anne-Marie, for your presentation.
Thank you, Travis.
Let's try this again. Can you hear me?
Okay, let's go. You're up.
Yay! How about that? Technology-based company that can't get a microphone to work. Thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be participating with such an illustrious group of individuals. Can you see my presentation?
Looks good.
Okay. So Technifex XR is not your standard kind of DoD contractor. We are not research scientists. We don't have a static product line that we offer and we sell for solutions. We work with our partners and our clients to develop customized solutions to meet the needs and the goals of a storyline, a particular set of mission, objectives, etc. Our background comes from developing and designing large-scale mechanical atmospheric effects combined with robotics to deliver these creative, immersive environments, mainly geared at theme parks, water parks, casinos, and other location-based entertainment. Don't get me wrong, this is not your movie magic where one shot and you're done. These are life safety systems that have guests, casts that are riding on around them that require a level of engineering and analysis and physics-based solutions to make these last a long time. Typical systems that we design and develop run from an average of 8 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with a service life of 20 years. So they're pretty robust. TechniFX XR is relatively new. We spun XR out of the parent company, TechniFX, about a year ago. And as we started to look at the horizon of training and simulation, we started to see the need and a desire to get kind of more realistic training environments into the mix. We felt with our ability to create these immersive environments and creating that suspension of disbelief that we could bring this into the market and partner with other smart people to develop really cool simulations. These are the 3 examples that I'm able to share today with you. We're working on a lot of stuff, but for IP reasons, we'll keep it at this. The first one up is LA County Fire Department. This is a training facility located in Castaic. It's called DeVal. It's about 160 acres of fire training. What they asked us to do is help partner with kind of a master planning, and it did have a lot of resemblance to theme park in creating different lands. They wanted to create different areas and different training scenarios that then they could look at regionalization, do more training, not just for LA County, but other firefighter agencies, police, and clandestine type. Hazmat City, obviously, as it talks about, has all kinds of cool simulations for spills and fills and fire and smoke. The one that we'll focus on today is number 1, which is a tanker truck versus auto is what it's called. California freeways are bad enough as it is, but you can imagine the heightened challenges that a tanker spill in the middle of the freeway would cause. We worked with subject matter experts, their leadership, to find the goals, the missions, the parameters of the things that challenge them the most, and created what you see here. Full-size tanker on a K-rail on a real section of freeway out at this training facility, combined with fire effects and actual people in the car that firefighters have to extricate out. The training scenario has instructor-led console, as well as pre-programmed events that can change the sequencing. So instead of always going A to B to C, and that becoming just kind of the training that you do, is trying to train in situ under high duress. It could go A to C to D to F and back again to really get firefighters to think through the process and not have it so routine. We did a complete, kind of end-to-end solution where we developed the control systems, the fire system, fire delivery systems, as well as all the audio that goes with this, and it is still in use today, as I'm aware. The next we have IED Battle Drill Simulator. This came to us through the DoD via RL Leaders, and this was around the time that more people were being killed by IEDs than gunfire. They were looking for a training simulation for the Humvee and that crew. We took advantage of the latest technology at the time, which was a high-def projection system for the visual immersion, combined it with the mechanical motion of a simulator with real Humvee. We designed and developed the 6-DOF hydraulic based simulator system connected to that. So, kind of training in an environment that they're used to and not necessarily completely virtual. As you can imagine, as you're looking for these things that are key indicators of IEDs and what to watch out for, combining the visual aspects with the physical aspects really kind of helps create the environment. And of course, we couldn't let it go without having a non-lethal blast that happens within the Humvee itself. This simulator is capable of producing an 8G move while we send concussive shockwaves inside the vehicle itself. Non-lethal, but very unpleasant and disorientating, and that's kind of the focus is if you survive, how do you get out? We also we've been working on a JTEC training prototype that you see here. There are other JTEC trainers. Travis is aware of some of those as well. We do have a sister component to this that we call kind of a JTEC in a box. and it allows you to take kind of your VR headset with a computer system and, pretty much do your sets and reps no matter where you are at any given time. This really focuses on the larger systems, the dome systems that are out there that are really kind of passive in nature, where you're calling in your strikes, you're doing your air coordination, but it becomes more of a visual. After you do it, you take a look at it, and there's kind of no environmental feedback. There's no force feedback into what this is that you would experience in real life. We did develop this with an ex-JTEC and a current JTEC trainer to start to evolve this concept. Since that, we've had three different groups that came through did training. Our last group was in late spring, early summer, where we had Schoolhouse JTECs and some PJs that came and did some training for a week, both the classroom inside and the virtual, as well as combined with the outside. Some of the unique features that this has is it does allow for wind, rain, heat, as well as if a chopper is flying over in a virtual sense, you're getting rotor washed down. So it really kind of connects the dots, visually as well as physically. Here's a breakdown of some of the systems that you see there. The wind and the mist. The platform that this individual is kind of kneeling on or taking a half knee on actually has features built into it that as you drop ordnance of different size and relationship to you, danger close, it's going to be a much more impactful feeling that you feel underneath your legs. As well as in that wall itself, there's also bullet strife hits. And the idea behind that was, instead of vertically standing up as you're calling your strikes, at some point in time, somebody may see you and shoot you. So this is kind of a remembrance, or a reminder, I should say, to try to keep your head down low. It's a couple of videos of one of the JTECs starting his training with his instructor. This system uses MACE that's integrated, that pulls this all together and ties in the atmospheric effects with the visual effects pretty well. So that's kind of a very rushed version of what we're up to. I think, with a lot of conversations that have happened this morning and will continue to happen today through the summit, there's a layering of technology that we look to employ where the physical aspects, I think that's a little bit more straightforward in what we can produce in a realistic way, but being able to measure the efficacy of the training systems that we have, learning from, the behavior of the individual going through the training, and how do we better use that to, not only make better warfighters, but
Yeah, thank you, Ian. It was just remarkable when you come across an innovative company that's able to take like a JTEC trainer, for example, that people have been working on for 10 years, 15 years, and then go into it from a completely different perspective, and the effects that you're able to bring, how mind-blowing it can be. And so your presentation, the technology that you're bringing, it just brings in a whole new perspective of how you can increase realism. And our theme of improving human performance, the more that you can increase the realism and model those effects, that leads to obviously better training and better preparedness. And the first time seeing that, every time you had one of those trainers come in and the floor moved, I was like, okay, they'd spent their entire life of 40 years being in a trainer and the floor never moved once. Yeah. And then it completely unlocks their brain and they have to readjust. So those insights and those innovations that are coming from your group are just amazing. And so to get your time and to have you present, I really appreciate that. One quick question just on, again, more towards the future and some of the integration of technologies, some from the conference that you're in today and others that you're aware of. Where do you see some of these future applications or integrations going?
Well, there's I'm hoping you can still hear me and I haven't dropped out again, but I think the world is the oyster, right? There's so much cool technology that, folks on this summit are doing that become instantaneous layers that you can easily plug in. EEG type stuff plugging into these training systems is, one of those biofeedback, mechanisms that we can tap into to really try to understand the human response to training. I think we get the kind of physical thing, in some of the previous examples of, hey, if I lift weights and I'm stronger, then, physically I should be able to do more. But it's kind of that mental aspect of training that, really we're starting to kind of zero in on layering in those things as well as other technologies. So it's a cool time for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Ian, for presenting, and that kind of wraps up our West Coast tour, California, Washington, some of those groups, and we're going to swing back to the East Coast and some of the presentations that are coming up now. I apologize for the delay in the schedule, but if you have a hard stop, please let us know. But we're just fascinated with all the information that's being presented, and we're willing to go into our lunchtime. So hope everyone else is. I'm going to now introduce Michael Cannizzaro and the Synthetic Training Environment Cross-Functional Team and Michael's key role there, and the presentation on virtual humans in the Army's flagship program for simulation modeling, the synthetic training environment. So Mike, welcome in, and over to you.
Thanks, Travis, and thanks to everyone for dialing in and also for having us again. So last year we discussed a little bit of virtual humans in STE in the sense of overarching sort of concepts. This year I want to get a little bit more specific in the limited time that we do have. So on this slide, we're sort of we're talking about some of the limitations of what the STE is trying to address. So as background, currently, Army training and simulation technologies are aging. They are becoming more difficult to sustain. They are based on technologies that were developed individually as point solutions to point needs. And so in this case, they are not necessarily designed for interoperability and certainly are not always able to replicate the operational environment that we're moving into in a modern battlefield. And so on the next slide, I'll discuss a little bit of this is the architecture for the synthetic training environment, and this will become important as we move on into the presentation. But it's sort of a vocabulary lesson for us. And so the STE is broken out into these major components, and so you can think of training management tool as sort of an overarching exercise design type of capability, but also for the exercise controller to be able to monitor an exercise or a training event and then to perform an after action. And so it is not just the interface to the exercise controller or conductor. It is also a suite of tools to be able to take in authoritative data sets and to perform after actions and analytics at the end. The training simulation software is that core gaming engine or simulation engine that sort of drives the real-time component of STE, and so it is very central to the operation of the capability. And One World Terrain is something that we like to highlight as one of the critical data sources and repositories to solve some of these more legacy issues that we've had in the past, where multiple data sources come together, but maybe not so cleanly and maybe not at the same levels of fidelity. And so in this case, for terrain, One World Terrain is intending to provide a more complete and more authoritative data source for training, although the operational use cases are rolling in every day and the demand signal from the field is taking advantage of some of those modern capabilities that One World Terrain offers. Around this core are sort of input and output devices, and so these are ways that a user would interact with the core of the simulation, and these include collective training for both air and ground systems, individual soldier training interface devices, including weapon systems and other items, and then some sort of display that could be a laptop, that could also be a headset, and we also have a joint or a collaborative program with IVAS. So going to the next slide, let's think about this instead of an architectural view. Let's think about this as more of a data flow view, right? And so you can imagine that the amount of data to pull into a training environment is immense, and we are not the authoritative source for many of these data sources. In fact, we're not the authoritative source for the bulk of them. One World Terrain is an exception, but in this case, we pull. You can pull from doctrine, things like graphics models. We are not going to necessarily develop models for the virtual human or a tank or whatever. These are developed by other organizations, and we are beneficiaries of that work as long as they are available, discoverable, and also available as a service or easily incorporated into the environment. And then in the exercise and design control, I'll show you in the example, we're pulling these data sources in, we create the exercise, and the exercise controller has the ability to select the most appropriate data stores and then to support their scenario, and then they kick off the scenario in the exercise, and that goes into the runtime. In which case the exercise will be run. The users at any scale will be able to interact with the simulation, and they indirectly interact with those data stores on the left. And the runtime is instrumented in order to collect data throughout the length of the exercise, which could last from several minutes to several days. And then at the end, you complete your tasks. And then you run your analytics, your archiving on the data that was collected, in addition to the near-term after actions that are done. So let's take this example and make it a little bit more specific about something in the next slide for what we are prototyping here in the synthetic training environment. So in this example, and this is something that we're doing in our own lab that we have in our CFT, which is unique among CFTs. So we have access to a marksmanship trainer. It is a commercial product. And then so we would run that trainer with a user in there, and they would perform a proficiency test on a weapons exercise. We would then collect that data into a weapons performance model for that individual user. And similarly, like you've seen prior in the day, there are 3D scanning technologies at various fidelities, and so we can also incorporate a 3D scan of that specific person. And then moving into the planning stage, you would do your normal exercise design and control. We would pull from authoritative data sources as we need to. We would create a soldier avatar in this case using that 3D scan. So the soldier is seeing themselves in the simulation. And then we would hybridize a weapon model based on the doctrine and the data that's coming in from those authoritative data sources, but that would be salted with the proficiencies that were demonstrated in that marksmanship trainer. So in this case, we're taking things that were collected over time, as well as things that are collected in a more near-term case here, and then we incorporate that into the next exercise. Those are then run into the runtime, and so that specific user's avatar model would be run in the runtime, and the weapon performance would be modified based on the performance of that specific person, based on that marksmanship training proficiency. And then you come back and then you perform your after action review. The avatar in the simulation, if they did not have, so in this specific example, they would be running the simulation and the training event as an avatar in this case, right? So from a laptop or some other input device that does not have a weapons component, but their weapons proficiency would reflect their actual proficiency in the marksmanship trainer. And so you perform an after action, and then through the instrumentation of the runtime, you feed that data back, and you perform your data curation over the aggregate. And this enables long-term analytics, and it enables a methodology to measure things that have previously been very difficult to measure, such as unit readiness. Readiness is sort of a soft, in some cases, a sort of a soft science in how to measure it or grade it. And so this adds a little bit of data pedigree to being able to do that. And then, of course, in the aggregate, what we're doing here for the specific example is we're not intending to make this a fieldable prototype. So this prototype is intended to identify gaps in our data methodology, perhaps in the data model itself or the storage or the curation, so that we don't store too much data, but we store the right data that would be able to feed forward into the future, because obviously at this scale, data management and storage, as well as responsiveness of being able to bring that data back into the next exercise is a little bit of a challenge. So if we go to the next slide, I'll just discuss some of the other areas that we're currently researching in our lab. So avatar scanning that was shown earlier today, and we need to do that at multiple levels of fidelity, and in some cases, time will dictate that more than others. Human performance data as a service, and so we're talking that a little bit, that sort of feeds in a little bit to another bullet on Community CPT. But we need almost every data set to be available as a service. Providing hard drives or providing local stores for some of these things is just not sustainable, especially when one of the points of the synthetic training environment is to deliver it at scale and to the point of need. And so those need to be discoverable. They need to be available as a service so that we can pull them in. Big data analytics need to be done not only for individuals, but also across the aggregate of the force. And for multiple uses, not just proficiencies, but also, like I said, readiness and other things that have become difficult to directly measure. And then, so I think this really sort of gets at some of the areas that we're prototyping. And certainly we are not the authoritative source of a lot of these things, again, but we are responsible and in some cases required and pushed to become sort of the hub for where a lot of these technologies come in together. So if we go to just the next slide, we're sort of wrapping up here. So where do we do this? So the CFT, like I said, is unique in that we have a lab. We're the only CFT with a dedicated lab for us. And so we do this here in Orlando. And we have a few tenets for what we do. Assessing progress of the acquisitions is one of them. But here, what I discussed today is sort of this prototyping of complex research topics. And so we encourage others to come in and show and integrate. And we have a venue for that. And so that venue is unique. And we do things to reduce risk for the PEO and our other partners because we can do things in a rapid way, and we can do things in a fashion that allows us to fail quickly, find the faults, and then regroup, and then feed those lessons up to the PEO and our acquisition partners. And then we also, in general, have reached back and outreach to S&T, academia, and industry. And then to a lesser extent, demonstrations. Of course, there's always the visitors that come in to see what we do. So if you go to the next slide, I think this is my closer here. So we encourage participation, and the best way to do that is to go to our website and submit to our portal. And there is a mechanism there to provide a white paper or other documentation on products or services or things that you think are useful. The lab is well equipped both in terms of facilities and staff to be able to integrate things. And if there are items of interest regarding virtual humans or anything in the modernization of the STE and the training community in general, we encourage participation and outreach. So I tried to run through that pretty quick, and so I don't know if we have time for questions, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, that was excellent. One question was related to, and I'm glad you brought it up, the TIF, and in general the Tech Grove and all the work that you're doing at the TIF. What's the best way for individuals, organizations to get involved in the TIF, to come see what you're doing, to make recommendations of how to participate inside the TIF?
Sure. So I think the best way is to go through that portal. Certainly feel free to contact me directly, but I would For our own sort of workflow, we do recommend and encourage participation on the website so that we can archive that information, and then it's searchable to others as people come and go, or as people are doing market research for a different topic, for example. And it should be noted that, the STEE-CFT doesn't necessarily have like a contractual budget or anything like that. So we would not necessarily be able to have a contractual relationship necessarily, although our industry or our government partners in S&T and in the PEO do have that mechanism. But we do have ways to assess. We're trying to provide a venue, right? The TIF is a venue for people to be involved in the modernization of training, so that it doesn't have to be a prohibitively expensive thing to get involved into. If you have a technology, but you don't want to create the ecosystem in which to demonstrate it, we can be that ecosystem and we can be that venue. So we would provide the space, the physical space. We would provide the subject matter experts to perform the integration. And if all you have is a component technology, that's great. We can work on integrating it, and we can do it as a partnership. And so the details of how that's specifically done will vary on case-by-case basis, but certainly submitting a white paper or a slide deck or something to that portal is probably the best first step.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. And thanks for walking through the slides quickly. Quickly touch base on the relationship with STTC there in Orlando, and how do they support STEE?
Yeah, sure. So, the CFTs were sort of designed from the start to be a focal point for sort of that three-pronged process where you have a requirements developer and then you have an S&T developer that's sort of looking at those far-reaching technology gaps, and then you have a PEO who's acquiring a system that's mature and that is integrated. And so STTC is the prime organization that has a portfolio dedicated to STEE for science and technology research. And so their 6.2 and 6.3 project lines are mostly aligned to STEE technology gaps. They have other customers as well, but we are one of their largest. And so STTC has the expertise and also the history and the experience to invest in Army-specific gaps, right? So we're not looking to perform investments on things that we know commercial industry or someone else in the DoD or the PEO can buy off the shelf, right? So we are looking for technology and research gaps that are specific to an Army problem that we are uniquely postured, and STTC is uniquely postured to invest in because no one else will, right? There's just no other commercial application for that technology or that body of work, and so that's really the role that they fill for us. And so they are one part of an important ecosystem, but they are a critical part.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate your information. We look forward to remaining engaged, and as the world opens up a little bit more, spending more time at the TIF and engaging with you. So thank you. Appreciate your time and all the work that everyone at the STEE is doing. Thank you. And I will transition now over to the Army Modeling and Simulation Office, which is led by Colonel Scott Gilman, and Lieutenant Colonel Christian Pereira is going to be with us, and they will be followed by DevCom, the Data Analysis Center, Greg Dietrich and Ron Bowers. I think Ron will be the one presenting after Lieutenant Colonel Pereira. So over to you.
All right. Good morning good afternoon from the East Coast. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Christina Pereira. On behalf of Colonel Scott Gilman, Deputy Director of the Army Modeling and Simulation Office, I'd like to thank the University of Iowa for hosting this event on virtual human modeling, and also for inviting me to speak for a few minutes about the mission of AMSO and how we may contribute to this body of work. Next slide, please. The Army Modeling and Simulation Office is a direct report to the Center for Army Analysis, which is the Army's authority on analysis of land warfare. CAA states 6 major objectives or lines of effort. 1, synchronize national and international operations, research, and analysis activities. 2, integrate the Army analytic community. 3, deliver quality analysis. 4, develop Functional Area 49 and Functional Area 57 officers we're simulation operations professionals, and Career Program 36 civilians, which are our simulation professional civilians. 5, provide effective M&S strategy, policy, and management of models and simulations for the Army. And 6, develop the CAA workforce. Next slide, please. So 2 of those objectives directly relate to us at AMZO. So what is our function? We have 4 lines of effort, as you can see from this slide. We develop strategy for the M&S enterprise, execute governance, lead the coordination effort for joint, intergovernmental, interagency, and multinational environments so that we can build once and reuse often. And we train our modeling and simulation workforce, the functional area 57 officers and CP36 civilians referenced earlier. Our vision and end state is to support both the operating and generating forces with M&S. Next slide. We do much of that work to support the forces in the Strategy and Resources Division at AMZO, which is where I sit. M&S-led analysis informs Army decisions for new capabilities, new tactics, and new equipment. However, some of that research is done in stovepipes of the organizations. In our policy and regulations, we try to break those stovepipes and guide the enterprise into collaborative tools, policies, standards, and guidance. We strive to provide visibility of all the efforts across the Army, as well as work with the Modeling and Simulation Enterprise at DoD, the Marine Corps Modeling and Simulation Management Office, the Navy Modeling and Simulation Office, and the Air Force Agency for Modeling and Simulation, as well as industry and academia, which is why I'm so happy to be here this morning. Next slide. This is my favorite slide because it depicts the depth and width of the Army M&S enterprise. Almost every agency or community uses M&S to some degree, and at AMZO we are here to support all of them. Our 6 communities by regulation, which is AR 511 Management of Modeling and Simulation, are intelligence, acquisition, analysis, experimentation, test and evaluation, and training. But as you can see from the slide, each high-level community is a conglomeration of subcommunities with their own M&S needs and use cases. We work closely with several of these organizations and on the peripheral with the rest of them. Especially PEO STRI is a very close relationship, but we work with PEO EIS with our authoritative data effort, as well as all the CFTs, the CFT and social lethality CFT, to name 2 of them. Next slide, please. Each community can be mutually supportive and may have overlap, as shown with this basic visual, to help achieve our goals of interoperability, gaining efficiencies, and improving effectiveness throughout our communities, as well as searching for M&S gaps or needs. AMZO hosts a modeling and simulation forum. Our 7th annual Army M&S Forum will be held 31 January to 4 February 2022. Each year, we invite plenary speakers, have special topic discussions, and have demonstrations. The bulk of the week, however, is spent within the working groups. Next slide. AMZO currently sponsors 10 working groups that pull in representatives from across the entire enterprise. Our work groups are cyber, network modeling, fires, CBRN, or chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear, intel environment, sensor, terrain, data, close combat infantry, which was a new working group stood out after the end of last year's forum, and human representation. Mr. Ron Browers, who will speak in just a couple of minutes, is a part of our human representation working group. The M&S Forum has many of the same goals as this virtual human summit. We identify existing capabilities and discuss new developments relative to each working group. The end result of the week is to articulate any gaps and needs with an associated proposal to mitigate the gap. During the following months, those efforts are further refined and presented to our Council of Colonels. And at the end of the enterprise management process, we have our one-to-end list of efforts that we at AMZO will fund the following fiscal year. Next slide. More coordination leads to more opportunities for us to build once and reuse often. So I'll just close this small overview of AMZO with a commercial for the M&S Forum. In 2021, we hosted a successful virtual forum over M&S Teams. Because of such great feedback of the virtual option, but acknowledging the hallway conversations that sometimes lead to breakthroughs, COVID dependent, the 2022 forum will be a hybrid event with both workgroup and preliminary sessions broadcast via Teams, but with in-person attendance to the maximum extent possible. If anybody is interested in the forum or in learning more about any of our working groups, please reach out to me and I will be happy to discuss further collaboration. Ron will now discuss the Soldier and Squad Trade Space Analysis Framework. This was not an effort that specifically came from our M&S forum, but I do hope that the working group venue allowed more communities to possibly benefit from staff, including this one. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Pereira. Appreciate that overview. Look forward to the next conference coming up. And as you mentioned, Ron Bowers is up next to continue with the presentation specifically on SDAF. So Ron, if you are ready, over to you.
I am ready. Yes, are my slides up there? Christina, were you going to push them, or should I push them from here? I'm sorry.
Oh, I sent them over to Travis and team, but I can push if they're not.
Travis, do you have can you push the slides?
Yeah, I will check on that. And they were part of the slide deck. Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you very much. All right. As has been said, I'm Ron Bowers. I am the lead of the Soldier Lethality, or the Soldier Performance Modeling Team. My team name has changed since this slide was put together. And I will be discussing the Soldier and Squad Trade Space Analysis Framework, or as we say, STAF. Next slide, please. So STAF was developed, or is being developed, as a response to a requirement expressed by the Soldier Lethality cross-functional team. The cross-functional team was looking at how to optimize their modeling and simulation environment. And what they really wanted was the capability to look at the performance or the effects of soldier equipment on the combat effectiveness of soldiers and squads. An issue that we have currently in the Army is that the human is represented rather poorly in our analytic simulation environments. For all intents and purposes, the soldier is treated as almost as a robot who performs at his maximum capability through the duration of the mission. And that construct results in bad analysis of what any new equipment means to the effectiveness of the soldier. So we undertook STAF as a way to be able to treat the soldier as a holistic system, including the soldier himself as well as his equipment, and then be able to look at the interaction of the soldier and his equipment and how that played out over time and demonstrate itself as the soldier's performance. So the way that STAF is constructed, or the way STAF looks at things, is to integrate a number of validated models into this one representation of soldier state and capability, and that integrated representation can then be itself embedded into other constructs or other higher level models. In particular, we're concentrating at first on integration into the force level models like OneSAF and IWARS and Combat 21, which give us the ability to model the soldiers operating in a combat environment. So what staff does is, we have this integration of soldiers, or of individual models that come from different sources, one of which is Santos, so we're highly tied into Santos. But basically, each of these models predicts some aspect of soldier state and capability, and as the simulation proceeds, these models can update each other and provide a robust representation of the soldier. So the ultimate goal of this effort is be able to accurately simulate real soldiers and squads. So what we would like to be able to do is take get information about an actual soldier and actual units, model them at high resolution within the environment, and be able to use those representations to predict how that soldier and that unit would operate in a specific scenario. And then we can then equip those soldiers with either production equipment or conceptual equipment, and see how those equipment choices, equipment configurations affect the outcomes in the simulated battle. So next slide, please. So this morning, Kareem mentioned the squad overmatch effort, and this is the top level overview of that project. So the basic idea of squad overmatch is the objective infrastructure to provide the ability to simulate human performance in a combat sim. So we are looking at, and have started the process of integrating staff into the OneSAF combat model. And then once we have that capability, that'll be tied in with the ability to do visualization and analysis of the outcomes of that simulation. And then ultimately, you'll be able to provide ability to easily configure the analysis. So you can specify the soldiers that you're going to use in the analysis, the equipment, the scenario. And then ultimately, we should have a turnkey solution that addresses what the soldier lethality CFT has as their objective vision. So next slide, please. So really quickly, this kind of goes to where I kind of hope that we're able to get ultimately with the use of modeling and simulation to accelerate and smooth the material development and acquisition process. So by tying together high resolution models and simulations, human experimentation, human modeling, and then on the material development side, the new digital engineering workflows, basically hope to tighten up the development cycle and to be able to produce new material for the soldier at a much higher rate, and develop material that meets the requirements, or meets the requirements for the soldier. So that was a really fast run through. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Thank you, Ron, for walking through. And I know that Greg Dietrich is also online, or when we started this a couple hours ago, I know Greg was. I didn't know if Greg, if you wanted to provide any commentary, especially related to like what the next couple years look like in terms of this program, other groups across the Army that you're interfacing with, and in essence, kind of what the future looks like for SStaff.
Thanks, Travis. Yeah, so the first couple of years of development of staff, we were kind of eking through. There was a lot of doubt on whether or not we would be able to produce the deliverable that we were touting. We've actually come a long way the past couple of years. Ron and his team have done an outstanding job. So the future is looking bright. We are hoping that by the end of this year, Ron will have integrated staff into OneStaff, and we will have a fully operating version. Our goal is the release of OneStaff in the spring of 2022 is when that will be there. So the future is looking good. We've been tied to a couple of programs, one of which is a new Army body armor program that I think is just custom made for what we're trying to do with staff. So I don't want to take up too much time here because I know we're a little behind, but yeah, things are really looking good for us at this point.
Thank you, Greg. And I know circling back to Senator Ernst's remarks at the beginning, and one of her areas of emphasis was how do we better design PPE, especially for females. And so I agree, it's a very, very timely event to be able to use the model to truly understand the trade-offs between mobility, survivability, lethality, and have a modeling environment where you can get some data behind what you're trading off. And as you're going into perhaps new theaters of operation or new conflicts, you can then adjust to say, well, in this theater, X parameter is going to be much more important. So then you can run it through that model and understand how to influence the acquisition or TTPs or things. So appreciate that. Look forward to seeing you soon in person, and thank you for the time today. And Lieutenant Colonel Pereira and Ron, appreciate your time, appreciate you hanging on, and thank you very much. And we will be seeing you soon. And now I believe Dennis had to sign off. Dennis McGurk with RTI is very involved in the North Carolina Center for Optimizing Military Performance. And we're going to just bring up Dennis's slides, and I'll run through them because as part of this effort, the University of Iowa is joining with the North Carolina Center for Optimizing Military Performance because so much of what they do in North Carolina corresponds and matches what the University of Iowa and our consortium and our partners are doing as well. So it's a very good fit. NC Comp as the acronym, there's a number of organizations affiliated with it, a lot of top researchers out of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You have the overall North Carolina Defense Alliance, and they put on various conferences, webcasts, and events, and their industry partners and their touch base with the military families and footprint in North Carolina is very significant. So we're very fortunate to be partnered with them. So next slide, please. So Dennis's favorite remarks about NC Comp and their focus specifically on the human is, hey, we know more about all of our vehicles and platforms and how they operate and how to supply them and when they run out of gas and when they need an oil change and all that stuff than we do about our soldiers. And so for everyone that is part of this summit and everyone that's interested in this, we are the team, really no one else. We're the team that is going to be leading this revolution in soldier and human performance, understanding it, predicting it, being able to provide more accurate interventions and predictions of how humans perform. So, and you know, we're going into multi-domain operations and future operations, which we honestly we don't really know what that looks like now. You know, we're going to have to do it for a couple of years until we figure it out. So we want to create all the systems in place that we can rapidly react to what the future holds for us. I mentioned the Defense Alliance of North Carolina. They've done a lot of work on this, and they're kind of clustering around technologies that they present to DoD: advanced manufacturing, autonomy, data knowledge management, and human performance. And they've just recently had more focused effort on human performance. Next slide, please. So this is their kind of overview, providing kind of a legend. It may be hard to see everything, but they're trying to pull together all the military installations across North Carolina, the higher education groups, research and education groups, and industry that are around there, and just provide a coordinated venue. So the work that they started doing became so effective that they really opened up their viewfinder, and now Iowa is bringing in a technology that some of the DoD partners in North Carolina were looking for. And so in a very collaborative fashion, RTI North Carolina reached out and said, hey, you know, in order to be successful, we have to be a collaborative partner. And I think that's one of the keys to success moving forward is understanding what is your niche and your discriminating technology, and then being able to work in a very open and willing fashion. And Adam Farrow from Spear referenced that. Kristen and Mo from WHOOP, you know, have referenced that. And there's a growing consensus around, hey, we've got to be able to work together well, and we believe that that benefits both the warfighter and the participants. Next slide. So just some additional background. The other elements that I haven't mentioned that are part of the Defense Alliance in North Carolina. So North Carolina Biotech, the Fort Bragg Research Institute, and others are coming together to apply solutions, not just to DoD, but also to fire rescue and others in North Carolina. ARL, Army Research Lab, Research Office is involved. The Medical Research Division, MRDC, they're working closely. Our groups have worked together, and we've actually submitted proposals together to the via the MTech Consortium, the Military Technology Enterprise Consortium. So that's been some actual results come out of this. Also working across with the specials that are located there, USASOC, MARSOC, and NSW, 82nd Airborne, and work with Holistic Health and Fitness. So it's a great partnership. Next slide, please. This gives more background on to their motivation. You know, it's truly a coalition of the willing that are wanting to improve human performance. And we've mentioned the WHO, obviously the where is in the name, and they've had some meetings real time, right? So they've been following up with some quarterly meetings in 2021 and actually providing opportunities for industry members to present to DoD. Next slide. And these are some of the areas that they're working. I think next year we're going to be focusing more on the cognitive side of the modeling. So on the virtual human models, the digital twins, we presented a lot of information on how the technology exists to be biomechanically accurate, to have accurate physiology in the human model. The technology exists on the look of the human. And so I think the next frontier to provide input on is going to be on cognitive functioning. But you can see the rest of the areas that they work on. Next slide, please. And then what they're trying to mix all those and provide outputs. how do we increase fitness, cognitive ability, mental health, getting into nutrition. What's the role of wearables, data analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning? They're all working together, and they're a great venue for that. Next slide. Okay, this is an eye chart, a detail slide on plank holders and who's there from a DoD development and T&E environment, and from a research perspective. So North Carolina A&T, Duke, Wake Forest, you get obviously those lead North Carolina institutions involved, but some of the interesting fitness partners like TRX, Elite is in there, and then DoD entities, and Iowa is not on the list because we didn't get the paperwork signed in time, or by we I mean Travis didn't. So we're going to be part of NC Comp. We'll make it on their next slide, and we hope that a lot of the partners that are on this call will also strongly consider working with Dennis and being part of NC Comp. Next slide, please. The value, they're providing the connective tissue from industry and academia into DoD. And they have a lot of knowledge with various SMEs and others there. Next slide. Okay, so I had to cover down on Dennis's slides. I really encourage everyone to go direct to Dennis and get more information. And so now, as we're closing in, we wanted to get another kind of very different perspective on the future, and we turn to students, to graduate students. And so we have a couple representatives. I'm going to introduce Catherine Walters, a student at Michigan State University and a lead of one of their fascinating research projects there involving exoskeletons, exosuits. So Catherine, over to you. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that it took so long to get to you, but we look forward to getting your perspective on the future.
Oh, that's all right. It's been fascinating to listen to all the other presentations, and thank you for your introduction. Let me share. Oh, actually, could you share? There's some system permission stuff going on my end.
Yeah, we should have your slides.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, everyone. My name is Catherine Walters, and I am a senior studying mechanical engineering at Michigan State University, and I am the chief engineer of the MSU's Strength Augmenting Robotic Exoskeleton, or STAR-X team. And I'll be giving a brief overview of what our club does, the different development tools that we use currently, as well as how using virtual humans in our design process could help us and take it one step further. So next slide, please. So as our name suggests, our goal is to design and build a robotic exoskeleton that augments the strength of the user. So our club was inspired by the rescue mission of firefighters and other disaster relief personnel. And our suit gives a healthy user the ability to carry a heavy load through a variety of terrains without experiencing any additional muscle strain. So we are a club that is student-led with faculty and graduate student advisors, and each year we compete at a competition against other universities performing tasks commonly done by firefighters, including carrying heavy loads through obstacle courses, up and down stairs, and through other terrains. So a simplified picture of our current suit is shown there on the right, with all of the electronics, straps, padding, etc. removed for simplicity's sake. So a user would step into those shoes shown in green and be secured through foot straps, leg straps, and backpack type straps that would connect to the spine shown at the top. And we also have an upper body that is currently in development and will be added in the future. So next slide, please. So to briefly explain how the suit works, it's a solid aluminum frame to which the external load would be secured, and that weight would be transferred through the suit into the floor rather than onto the user. And the hip and knee joints are actively actuated by electric linear actuators that are capable of allowing the suit to mimic human gait and stair climbing motion while carrying that external load. The suit is controlled through EMG sensors that are attached to the user's legs, which send signals of the user's muscle activity to a machine learning algorithm which predicts what motion the user is trying to perform and then sends signals to the actuators directing them to mimic that motion. So next slide, please. So in our development process, we start very, very simply with that CAD simulation on the left, which is essentially a stick figure of the lower body. So there's the ankle at the bottom with the lower leg connected to the knee, connected to the thigh, to the hip, and then the actuators are attached on the side. And that allows us to very, very quickly change the component placement, the component size, and then run through the range of motion to test for clearances and potential interferences before we create our detailed designs, which once we've done that, we virtually assemble them as shown on the right there to make sure that they all fit together before we begin machining. So next slide, please. Yeah, we can skip that. Okay, perfect. To get a little bit higher fidelity modeling and more precise calculations, we've also done a motion capture kinematic analysis of gait to calculate the actuator force required at each point in the gait cycle. And we did this in order to more precisely estimate the force and speed capacity requirements of the actuators that we wanted to purchase, as well as to define the requirements of the power system to support those actuators, because we are a student group, we have a limited budget, so we wanted to be very careful in how we made these very big ticket purchases. So next slide, please. So this takes me to my final point. So those development tools helped us to define our system requirements and verify our design decisions before we started that very costly and time-consuming process of making those purchases and machining those parts. And if we had the opportunity to use virtual humans in this process, then we could also check for safety and discomfort issues through the different tasks that we're intending the suit to be used for. And our suit also can be adjusted to fit users of different sizes. So this would also give us the opportunity to check that adjustability of the suit, as well as to determine if there is any of that external load that is being transferred onto the user. Because like I said, the suit is intended to carry that external load for you. And the straps are only meant to secure you to the suit. So if any of that load is being transferred to you, then we need to fix our design. And this tool would allow us to check this virtually, which would really increase the speed of our development process and reduce the cost. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time and for the opportunity to present our work here today.
Thank you, Catherine. That was fascinating. And it was, under the topic of virtual humans and human performance, we talked how potentially like a Santos virtual human model can help improve the design. But as we were talking about the future, what does the future hold, and what would it mean for the balance of strength and cardio fitness if 20 years from now exoskeletons are everywhere? Would it be more important to have a very aerobic runner, because now we don't need someone that has all the strength that we might need? So what the future is going to look like in 10, 20 years is going to be very, very interesting. And all the technology we've discussed today, it goes into helping kind of shape and design that. Will there potentially be new and different injuries we have to be on the lookout for as potentially exosuits make their way? I was just going to ask you, any anecdotes or any stories of how you or your humans actually wearing the suit, what did it do to them when they were wearing it? Like, mentally, how were they like, oh yeah, this is very natural, or was it? I'm just interested in your experience with the suit.
So actually, one thing that our pilots have remarked on before is that it's kind of a Iron Man experience, because you're getting into this suit and you're able to carry a much larger load, and it's one of those, like, that's kind of like the end vision that a lot of us have, is eventually making it not just like a kind of a skinny wireframe exoskeleton that is not aesthetically pleasing but very functional, but to also kind of increase not only the functionality but like the experience of wearing it. So that's kind of some of the our pilots have enjoyed that experience. So that's, yeah.
I can only imagine. And, part of the purpose of the presentation is also to show that as we're developing tools and technology and data storage, so you think of Epic Games and the Unreal Engine and all these environments, if we're able to make it easier to do design, develop, and analysis, and push those tools as far down the research and development chain as possible into the universities, into the students that have real kind of unbiased visions for where the technology could go, that's an interesting, and we need to make sure our technology is designed to support what's happening at the leading universities as well. So I'm glad we were able to connect and glad you were able to share that, and best of luck in your competition coming up this year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Okay, I will introduce
Travis, you're kind of muted.
And I just hit the mute button as I was doing the introduction. So I just was going to introduce you, Marco, and the work you're doing at the University of Iowa, and just get your perspective, not only on the work you're doing, but the future and where you see all this going. Over to you.
Right. So I kind of view the future of Santos in three parts. One is moving our code base into Epic, such as to make it more easier for people to use. There should be no reason why Catherine would have a hard time using Santos. In the perfect future, she'd be able to just download our package, our Santos package, load in her exoskeleton model, and just see what happens. The second part would be creating custom solutions for third-party software. This is already in progress, such as our initiative with the Overmatch project. Ron and I are working on creating a Santos integration for the Army. And that's a custom solution. That's something that not everybody needs to see, but it's available. And the third is to make sure people know about our ability to verify real world environments, such as the ACFT test. I feel like that's where the future for Santos really lies. Try keeping it short since we're way over time.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you for your work on those projects. Outside of Santos and some of the presentations that you've seen today, any other final thoughts on what might be good research questions, topics, or things to begin exploring in the future?
Oh, that is a good question. So something I think would be really interesting is how do we maintain safety in crowds? Essentially, Santos is capable of having a physical real world environment, and we want to integrate a psychological aspect of it, right? But think about Kinnick Stadium. We don't know how crowds are going to move all in. Oh my God, sorry. I had that written. I got spooked a little bit. But essentially, I want to make sure that we have a psychological component to Santos to make sure that they're able to think and not just say, hey, can they lift something up or down? And an example of that would be a person in crowds. I don't know about you, but when I'm working out and there's a bunch of people with me, I'm gonna deadlift a bit more than if I was just by myself. That kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Margo, thank you very much for sharing. And again, I want to thank everybody for participating and sharing. And obviously, we've gone longer than people have expected. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Malik Kareem. If you are online and you want to close out our seminar, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I just, on behalf of the University of Iowa and the Technology Institute, I would like to extend great appreciation to everyone that has participated. To speakers, thank you again for your willingness to share your expertise with and knowledge with everyone. To everybody that's online, thank you. I also, cannot close the summit without saying a huge thank you to Travis for a job very well done, very smooth, very effective. Deserves all the kudos that there is. Thank you, Travis. One last reminder, next year's conference would be here in Iowa City physically. It will coincide with the Digital Human Conference, is a international conference that goes to Europe 1 year and then comes to the US, and they've selected Iowa City as the next year. And so we'll be running it simultaneously. I think it'll be beneficial to everybody. The DHM is much more on the academic side, so there'll be paper submission and reviews and so on. And I think the two communities would be fantastic. I promise palm trees and good weather if you do come to Iowa City, and an exciting agenda. Thank you so much, everybody.